Shabbat Shalom. Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. Thank you. As people begin to join me, PA, thank you for being here early this morning. Real little quick about myself. A little continuation of my story. I'm Brian, and I was raised as a Southern Baptist. I left that as a 18-year-old and began a spiritual journey. I studied and looked into every quote-unquote thing that was hidden and began to read a lot of ancient texts and different things like that, and began to see a different picture of what conditions I was living under. I come to the realization that there really was a spiritual world and that there were really spiritual authorities and powers in place in that world. And that brought me back around to a Christian-based belief again. And I actually swung back the other way and became hyper that. And got back into reading scripture, the actual Bible. I had been raised in it and read different pieces of it throughout my life. However, when I began to read it from front to back, like I had read these other texts, I began to see the same story told again, and the same moralities and the same truths being put forward, the same creator being spoken about. And I know a lot of people are familiar with biblical texts, so I didn't start my reading of things there. I decided to start with one that seems to be one of the most concise, clear things we can look up and explore and find out if there's any truth to, and those are the texts of the the Tablets of Enki, which were found in the library of Assurbanipal and were translated by Zachariah Stitchin. In my previous videos, you can go back and see the first 6 tablets that I've read. We're heading into tablet 7 this week. Our aim for this is to be that everybody can come and discuss how they believe freely and openly in our chat. We ask that you not bring any personal attacks or any name calling into it. That's the only thing that would be, stopped in our chat. Any other ideas? We're hoping that we'll begin to see similarities and differences and begin to find out where these fit into spiritual belief. We are not a religious channel. We are just strictly reading these texts and seeing what we can glean from them. I do think each and every one as you join, I've kind of begun a format where I read through and then stop. I'm a very distracted person by chat, so I have to be careful. Or else I'll get off on a rabbit trail, and these are fairly long, in-depth texts. I try to kind of point a few things out I've seen in some of my readings before. I invite you to please interject into the chat as we read them, so that when we come to the intermission or the breaks between the different chapters and stuff, or tablets, we can have a further discussion. That being said, I'm not going to give a complete overview of last week, but we saw a interruption in the DNA of the beings that were living here on the earth. And there's one thing I do need to do. I do need to real quick bring up my own chat on the other device. Sorry for the delay there. We saw that there was a race here on Earth, that their DNA was interrupted by an outside force, being the Anunnaki. That race was interrupted for the purpose of being made into slaves to take over the work that their people didn't want to do. And we had the definition of some new areas on Earth, a Garden of Eden, so to speak, an area of mining. We had some new characters introduced into the lines of the Anunnaki, showing the continuation of their ancestry, the continuation of how all these wars began between the different brothers and sisters and cousins. As we get into the seventh tablet, we're going to see that Adamu and Tiamat were returned to the Abzu to bear children, that the new earthlings were very proliferate, that they worked in the mines as servants, that Enlil had grandchildren, the twins Utu and Inanna. The Anunnaki have other offspring on Earth. There's climate changes that cause hardships on Earth and on Mars. Nibiru's orbiting is coming close and brings upheavals to the Earth. Enki and Marduk explore the moon and find that it's very inhospitable. They determine the constellations and celestial time. I believe that's the formation of the zodiac, but we'll see. Bitter about his fate, Enki promises supremacy to Marduk. Anu gives command of the new spaceport to Utu and not Marduk. Oh boy, we've got another war here. Enki encounters and mates with two earthling females. One bears a son, Adapa, the other a daughter, Titi. We have him keeping the parenting secret. He raises them as foundlings. Adapa is very highly intelligent and possibly becomes the first civilized man. And then we have Adapa and Titi mate, who have two sons, Cain and Abel. So we're going to begin to see some other similarities and stories that are coming up. Good morning, Cannabis Show. Thanks for joining us and rebranding knowledge. Thank you. I'm going to begin reading the seventh tablet here. That was a quick synopsis of what this tablet's about. Feel free to bring up any comments or anything you see. We like to keep the discussion here kind and friendly, but we like all ideas to be exchanged freely so that we can hopefully begin to see light. So we have the seventh tablet. To the Abzo, away from the Eden, let them be expelled. I believe that's Enlil. So did Enlil the command decree. From the Eden to the Abzu, Adamu and Tiamat were expelled. In an enclosure among the trees, Enki them placed. To know each other, he them left. With joy did Enki see once again, folks, I will stumble over some of these names and hopefully we'll get them figured out too. Ningizida had done come to be with child. Tiamat was frolicking. I'm not following that sentence for a minute. Nimna came to the birth, giving to watch. A son and a daughter, twins to the earth beings, were born. Okay, I see. With wonderment did Ninma and Enki watch the newborns. How they grew and developed was a marvel. Days were as months, months to earth, years accumulated. By the time Adamu and Tiamat had other sons and daughters, the first ones were by themselves procreating. Before one Shah of Nibiru had passed, the earthlings were proliferating. And the Shah of Nibiru being 3,500 Earth years. With understanding were the primitive workers endowed, of commandments they were comprehending. To be with the Anunnaki they were eager, for food rations they toiled well. Of heat and dust they did not complain, of backbreaking they did not grumble. Of the hardships of work the Anunnaki of the Abzu were relieved. The vital gold to Nibiru was coming. Nibiru's atmosphere was slowly healing. Earth mission, to the satisfaction of all, was proceeding. Among the Anunnaki, those who were from heaven to earth came. There was also espousing and procreation. The sons of Enlil and Enki, from sisters and half-sisters, from healing heroines took spouses. The healing heroines are the nurses that came and did the genetic work. To them on earth, sons and daughters were born. Though by life cycles of Nibiru were they endowed, by earth cycles were they quickened. Who on Nibiru in diapers would still be on earth became a child. Who on Nibiru began to crawl when on earth born was running around. Special joy was there when Nanner and Ningel, twins, were born. A daughter and a son they were, and Nana and Utu, by Ninko they were named. With them, a third generation of Anunnaki on earth was present. For the offspring of the leaders, tasks were allocated. Some olden chores were divided. Easier among the offspring they were made. To the olden chores, new tasks were added. Upon the earth, the warmth was rising. Vegetation flourished. Wild creatures overran the land. The rains were heavier. Rivers were gushing. Abodes repairing needed. Upon the earth, the heat was increasing. The snow-white parts to water were melting. The bars of the sea, the oceans were not containing. From the depth of the earth, volcanoes were fire and brimstone belching. The grounds were trembling each time the earth was shaking. Now, at the beginning of the tablets, we have them coming to earth during the Ice Age with the description of both poles being completely frozen almost to the central part. So then we have a description of quite a few years in the following tablets of them toiling on earth. And now we're having a description of the beginning of the melting of these ice caps, the changing of the earth at the end of the Ice Age, which is often attributed to somewhere between around 250,000 years ago, I believe. But somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in my timing. The grounds were trembling each time the earth was shaking. In the lower world, the snow-white-hued place, the earth was grumbling. At the tip of the Abzu, Enki, a place for observing, established. To his son Nergal and his spouse Ershagal, command thereof he entrusted, a thing unknown, an untoward thing. Thereunder is brewing. Nigal to his father Enki said, in Nibiru Ki, the place of the bond heaven earth, Enlil, the heavenly circuits, was watching. Nibiru Ki is like the space command city on earth. By the emise of the Tablet of Destiny, celestial motions he was comparing. And the emise and tablets of destiny are some type of electronic device and crystalline storage type thing that they use for map making and all kinds of scanning and stuff like that. We've had that in earlier tablets as well. There is turmoil in the heavens, Enlil to his brother Enki said. From the planet Larnu, I'm sure that's Lamu, which is Mars, the place of the way station, Marduk to Enki, his father, was complaining. Strong winds are disturbing, annoying dust storms they are raising. So Marduk to his father, Enki, words was beaming. Okay, so right now Marduk is the head of Lamu or Mars way station, and Mars is starting to be behest with sandstorms, which I think is something interesting that as this Earth is going through A similar set of turmoils is described here, that Mars is also seeing changes. So Marduk to his father Enki words was beaming. In the hammered bracelet, turmoils are occurring. So there was a lot of stirring up within the asteroid belt. Upon the earth, brimstones from the sky were falling. Pitiless demons havoc causing, violent the earth they approached. Into flaming fires in the skies they were bursting. In a clear day darkness they were causing. With storms and evil winds they raged around. Like stony missiles the earth they were attacking. Kingu, Earth's moon, and Lamu too by these havocs were afflicted. The faces of all three with countless scars were covered. So here we have a recording of when the moon and Mars and Earth was bombarded by a whole lot of asteroids. Enlil and Enki, and that is also at the end of the Ice Age, by the way. Enlil and Enki to Anu, the king, urgent words were beaming. Nibiru's savants they alerted. The earth and the moon and Lamu, a calamity unknown, are facing. From Nibiru and the savants were responding. Their words, the leader's heart, were not calming. In the heavens, the family of the sun were taking stations. The celestials, of whom her earth is the seventh in a row, were choosing places. In the heavens, Nibiru was approaching the sun's abode. It was nearing. And a real quick comment here, people say, oh, seventh in a row, Earth's not seventh. But if you take and count the way they counted from the outside of the system in, we would have been seventh planet. The heavens, Nibiru was approaching the sun's abode. It was nearing. So Nibiru is getting close to the sun. By the seven in a row arranged was Nibiru distracted. So all seven planets lined up. The path through the hammered bracelet, it was missing. Earlier, they had blown a path through the asteroid belt that they had been navigating back and forth through, so it had closed up. From the bracelet, bits and pieces it had been displacing. Bereft of the celestial bar, Lamu and Mumu near the sun were crouching. In the heavens, Lamu, her glorious dwelling place, was abandoning. Toward Nibiru, the heavenly king, she was attracted. A queen of heaven she wished to be. So Mars is actually changing its orbit here because it's being attracted to Nibiru. To quell her, Nibiru from a celestial deep, a monstrous demon made appear. A monstrous once to Diamant's host belonged, by the celestial battle fashioned. From the celestial deep made its way, by Nibiru was it from slumber awakened. From the horizon to the midst of heaven, like a flaming dragon, it was stretched. Now, I don't know if anybody believes in the electric universe, but this is a very big description of a celestial arc, which some people believe made the big valley on Mars and possibly on Earth, and we hear that possibly described here. 1 league was its head, 50 leagues in length it was, awesome was its tail. By days the skies of earth it darkened, by night upon the face of the moon a spell of darkness it cast. To her brothers, the celestials, Lamu was for help, was calling. Who will the dragon obstruct? Who will stop and kill it, she was asking. Only valiant Kingu, once Tiamat's protector, stepped forward to respond, to intercept the dragon in its path. Kingu was making haste, so the moon, which is Kingu, Earth's moon, which once belonged to Tiamat, which is possibly Earth's original planet before being broke up, was coming to encounter this celestial demon. Fierce was the encounter. A tempest of clouds upon Kingu was raised. By its foundation was Kingu shaken. From the impact did the moon quake and shake. Then the heavenly havoc was calmed. Nibiru to its distant abode in the deep was returning. Lamu, its dwelling place, did not abandon. The stony missiles upon the earth and Lamu ceased their raining. So as Nibiru returns to deep space, its little group of asteroids and everything is going with it. The big electrical arc storm that it made between the planets has ended. And the only thing that saved Earth was the fact that the moon came between it and when it discharged from Mars. The stony moon, okay. Enki and Enlil with Marduk and Ninurta gathered, a surveying of the havoc they undertook. The foundation of the earth Enki surveyed. Of what its platforms had befallen he examined. So somehow Enki is exploring the inside of the earth. The depths of the oceans he measured. The earth's sparse corners and the mountains of gold and copper he scanned. Of the vital gold there will be no shortage. This was Enki saying. In the Eden, Ninurta was the surveyor, where mountains trembled and valleys shook. In his sky ship he soared and journeyed. The landing platform was intact. In the valley of the north, the earth fiery liquids was pouring. So was Ninurta to his father Enlil telling. Sulfuric mists and bitumes he was discovering. On Lamu, the atmosphere was damaged. Dust storms with life and work interfering. So here we have a recording of when Mars's atmosphere was destroyed. And that was, somewhere in the neighborhood between 250,000 and 25,000 years ago. So Marduk and Enki was saying, to earth return I wish, to his father he disclosed. Enlil to his olden plan betook himself. What cities and their task he planned he considered. A chariot place in the Eden must be established. To the others he was saying, the olden designs of the layout of the crystal tablet to them he showed. The conveying of the landing place to the way station of Lamu is no longer certain. Okay, so he's saying we need a new spaceport in the Eden, which many believe was the Mesopotamian area, which was where we find Marduk showing up historically as a god. The olden designs of the layout on the crystal tablet to them he showed. The conveying from the landing place to the way station on Lamu is no longer certain. To soar toward Nibiru from Earth, we must be able. So was Enlil to them saying. For the count, since the first splashdown, the count of 80 shars it was. Now this is the account of the journey to the moon by Enki and Marduk, and how Enki the three ways of heaven and the constellations determined. Let the place of the chariots near Bad-Tabaro, the metal city, be established. Therefrom, let the gold from earth to Nibiru in the chariots directly be carried. So Ninurta of Bad-Tabira, the commander, to them words was saying. Enlil to the words of Ninurta his son gave heed. Of his son's wisdom he was proud. To Anu the king Enlil the plan quickly conveyed. To him words he was saying. Let a place of celestial chariots in the Eden be established. Near the place where the gold ores are smelted and refined, let it be built. Let the pure gold in the chariots directly from earth to Nibiru be carried. Directly to earth from Nibiru let heroes and supplies be coming. Of great merit is this plan, my brother, Enki to their father Anu was saying. A great disadvantage in its core it is holding. The Neptune of earth is the Lamu's much greater. To overcome it, our powers shall be exhausted. So what he's saying is the net pull or the Earth's gravity is greater than Mars. So the people we bring here are going to be overcome or worn out. Before there is a rush to deciding, let us an alternative examine. Nearby the earth, a companion it has, the moon it is. Smaller is its net pool. Ascent and descent thereon little effort will require. Let us it as a way station consider. Let me and Marduk thereto journey. The two plans Anu the king before counselors and savants for considering presented. Let the moon be first examined. The king they did advise. Let the moon be first examined, and Anu to Enki and Enlil the decision beamed. Enki was greatly joyed. The moon to him always was alluring. Whether somewhere water is hiding, What atmosphere it possesses, he did always wonder. In sleepless nights, its silvery cool disk with bewitchment he observed. Its waxing and waning, a game with the sun played, a wonder of wonders he deemed. What secrets of the beginning it held he wished to uncover. In a rocket ship did Enki and Marduk to the moon journey. Thrice they the earth's companion encircled. The deep wound by the dragon caused they observed. By many hollows the handiwork of smashing demons was the moon's face marked. In a place of rolling hills they set the rocket ship down. In the midst they landed. From the place the earth they could observe, in the expanse of the heavens. Eagles' helmets they had to don. The atmosphere was for breathing insufficient. With ease they walked about. In this and that direction they went. The evil dragon's handiwork was dryness and desolation. Unlike Lamu, it is, for a way station, it is unsuitable, to his father Marduk was saying. Let us abandon this place, let us to earth return. Do not be hasty, my son, so was Enki to Marduk saying. Are you not by the celestial dance of earth and moon and sun enchanted? Uninstructed from here is the viewing of the quarter of the sun is at hand. The earth like a globe in the void by nothing is hanging. With our instruments we can scan the distant heavens. The handiwork of the creator of all in this solitude we can admire. Let us stay the circuits observe, how the moon circles the earth, how the earth in its circuits around the sun is making. And I want to point out once again, this is a recording of an ancient civilization of the creator of all. So Enki, by the sights agitated, to his son Marduk was saying. By his father's word, Marduk was persuaded. In the rocket ship they made their dwelling. For one circuit of earth, for 3 circuits on the moon they remained. Its motions about the earth they measured. The duration of a month they calculated. For 6 circuits of earth, for 12 circuits about the sun, earth's year they measured. How the two were entwined, causing the luminaries to disappear, they recorded. Then to the sun's quarter they gave attention. The paths of Mumu and Lamu they studied. I think Mumu is Saturn. I may have to look that up. Mumu may be Jupiter. I need to write these down on a card so I have it each week. I've kind of lost track of some of it. With the earth and the moon, Lamu, the sun's second quarter, constituted. 6 were the celestials of the lower waters, so was Enki to Marduk explaining, and 6 were the celestial of the upper waters, beyond the bar, the hammered bracelet they were. Oh, folks, we have a description of upper and lower waters again, something we see that occurs in many different texts. And here it's actually saying that somewhere around the hammered bracelet is where the upper and lower waters are divided. I need to look into that further. It's very interesting. I missed that before. Anshar and Kisnar, Anu and Nudamud, Gaga and Nibiru. These were 6 others. 12 were they in all. Of 12 did the sun and its family make the count. Of the upheavals most recent, Marduk of his father was inquiring, why have 7 celestials in a row places taken? So was he his father asking. Their circuits about the sun, Enki then considered. Their grand band around the sun, their progenitor Enki carefully observed. The position of earth and the moon therein on a chart Enki marked out. By the motions of Nibiru of the sun, not a descendant, the width of the great band he outlined. The way of Anu the king, to the name it Enki decided. So the traveling orbit of Nibiru is now called the way of Anu. In the expanse of the deep heavens, the stars did father and son observe. By their proximities and groupings was Enki fascinated. By the circuit of the heavens, from horizon to horizon, he drew image of 12 constellations. Okay, so here we have a mapping of the zodiac. That's what I thought I was hearing. The zodiac, actually, I found in other text, was or is believed to be a story, and that story happens to be the same one we see told over and over. In the great band, the Way of Anu, one each was the sun's family of 12 he paired. To each one he designated a station by names they were to be called. Then in the heavens below the Way of Anu, whence Nibiru the sun is approaching, a band-like way he designed, the Way of Enki he designated. To the 12 constellations by their shapes he also allotted. The heavens above the Way of Anu, the upper tier, and the Way of Enlil he called. Therein too the stars into the 12 constellations he assembled. 36 were the stars' constellations. In the 3 ways were they located. So will the Earth's position designated as around the sun it travels. As a boy, my dad taught me all these constellations and stuff. I don't remember them now, but it'd be interesting to go back and compare them again to these charts. I'm sure people have done that. The start of the cycle of celestial time, the measure, Enki to Marduk, indicated. When on earth I had arrived, the station was ending by me, the station of the fishes was named. So he's saying the ending of Pisces, I believe. The one that followed after my name title, he of the water I called. Sounds like Aquarius, which is what we're entering into now, which means maybe we're a full cycle from when all this took place. So Enki, with satisfaction and pride to his son Marduk, was saying, your wisdom the heaven embraces, your teachings any own understanding extend. But on earth and on the Nibiru, knowledge and rulership are separated. So did Marduk to his father say, my son, what is it that you do not know? What is it that you are missing? To him Enki was saying, the secrets of the heavens, the secrets of the earth, with you have I shared. Alas, my father, Marduk was saying, there was agony in his voice. When the Anunnaki and the Abzu toil ceased, and the primitive workers you set to fashion, not my mother Nimma, the mother of Ninurta, to assist you was summoned. Not I, but Ningizida, of me the younger, to help you was invited. With them, not with me, your knowledge of life and death did you share. My son Enki to Marduk responded, to you command was given of the Gigi and the Lamu to be supreme. Alas, my father, to him Marduk was saying, of supremacy by fate we are deprived. You, my father, are Anu's firstborn, yet Enlil, not you, is the legal heir. You, my father, were first to splash down of the and Eden established, yet Eridu is in Enlil's domain. Yours is in the distant Abzu. Oh, here we go, that stirring up of the old race war. I'm your firstborn, by your legitimate spouse. On Nibiru was I born. Yet the gold in the city of Ninurta is assembled, therefrom to send or to withhold. The survival of Nibiru is in his hands. In my hands it is not. Now to earth we are returning. What will my task be? Am I to fame and kingship fated, or again to humiliated be? In silence did Enki embrace his son. On the desolate moon to him a promise made. Of that of which I have been deprived your future lot shall be. Your celestial time will come, a station mine adjoining yours shall be. Such is the account of Sippar, the place of the chariots in the Eden, and how the primitive workers to the Eden were returned. On many circuits of earth from the earth were father and son absent. On earth, no plans were implemented. On Lamu, the Igigi were in turmoil. Enlil to Anu secret words conveyed. His concerns to Anu from Nibiru Ki beamed. Enki and Marduk to the moon have gone. For countless circuits there they are staying. Their doings a mystery are. What they are scheming is not known. Marduk, the way station on Lambu, has abandoned. The Igigi are agog. By dust storms has the way station been affected. What damage there is to us is not known. The place of the chariots in the Eden must be established. Therefrom the gold directly from earth to Nibiru to be carried. No way station on Lamu shall henceforth be needed. The plan of Ninurta it is, great in these matters is his understanding. Let him the place of the chariots near Badtabera established. Let Ninurta be its first commander. Anu to the words of Enlil gave much consideration. To Enlil a response he gave. Enki and Marduk to earth are returning. What about the moon they have found? Let us first to their words listen. From the moon Enki and Marduk departed, to the earth they did return. Of conditions thereon they gave account. A way station is unfeasible now, so they reported. Let the place of the chariots be built, Anu was saying. Let Marduk be its commander, Enki was saying to Anu. The task is for Ninurta set aside, and Lel, with anger, shouted. For the Igigi command is no more needed. Of the tasks Marduk knowledge has. Of the gateway to heaven let Marduk be in charge. So did Enki to his father say. Anu the matter with concern contemplated. Rivalries now the sons have affected. What wisdom was Anu endowed? With wisdom were his decisions. The place of the chariots for the new ways the gold to handle is designated. Let us what henceforth comes in the hands of the new generation place. Neither Enlil nor Enki, neither Ninurta nor Marduk in command shall be. Let the third generation responsibility undertake. Let Utu be the commander. Let the place of the celestial chariots be built. Let Sipar, bird city, be its name. Let the word of Anu unalterable was the word of the king. That's interesting because the Egyptians had a bird city. In the 81st Shar was the construction started. The plans of Enlil it followed. Nibiru Ki was in the center. A navel of the earth by Enlil it was designated. As on circles by their place and distances the olden cities were located. Like an arrow from the lower sea toward the mountains pointing they were arrayed. A line on the twin peaks of Arata to the skies in the north reaching he drew, where the pointing arrow the Arata line intersected. The place for Sipar, the earth's place of the chariots he marked out. Let it the arrow directly led, it from Nibiru Ki was by an equal circle precisely located. Ingenious was the plan, by its precision all were made to wonder. In the 82nd Shar was the construction of Sipar completed. To the hero Utu of Enlil the grandson, the command was given. An eagle's helmet for him was fashioned. With eagle's wings was he decorated. Interesting. He was given a set of wings and a helmet. Bird city, gods with bird faces. Very interesting. The first chariot from Nibiru to Sipar directly came. Anu was traveling to view for himself the installations he desired, to marvel at what was attained he wanted. For the occasion, the Agigi by Marduk commanded. From Lamu to earth came down. From the landing place from the Abzu, Anunnaki were assembled. There was backslapping and hailing, a feast and a celebration. The Igigi are those from Nibiru who established the Mars station. They are Anunnaki as well. For Anu, Mana, Enlil's granddaughter, singing and dancing presented. With affection, Anu kissed her. Anunita, Anu's beloved, he fondly called her. Before departing, Anu, the heroes and heroines assembled. A new era has begun, so was he saying to them. Supplied directly with the golden salvation, forthcoming is the end of toil. Once enough gold on Nibiru for protecting is piled in storage. The toil on earth can be diminished. Heroes and heroines to Nibiru will return. Thus did Anu the king to the assembled promise. A great hope to them he did extend. A few more showers of toil, and homeward they shall be bound. With much pomp did Anu to Nibiru soar back. Gold, pure gold, with him was carried. His new task Utu with cherish performed. Ninurta of Badtabira command retained. Marduk to Lamu did not return. With his father to the Abzu did he not go. Over all the lands he wished to roam, in his skyship the earth to comprehend. Of the Igigi, some on Lamu, some on earth, Utu was the commander made. After Anu to Nibiru returned, on earth the leaders great expectations had. With renewed vigor to labor, the Anunnaki they expected. Gold quickly to amass, thereby quicker homeward to be bound. That, alas, was not what came to pass. In the Abzu, relief, not continued toil, was the Anunnaki's expectation. Now that the earthlings were proliferating, let them provide the labor. So were the Anunnaki and the Abzu saying. In the Eden the tasks were greater. More abodes, more provisions were required. For the primitive workers to the Abzu confined, did the Eden's heroes clamor. For 40 shards was relief only to the Abzu provided. The heroes in the Eden shouted, Our toil has increased beyond endurance. Let us have the workers too. And I'll pause right here to explain that the Anunnaki are running food farms in what is known as the Eden 1 area. And we have it all being shipped to the Abzu, where they're now feeding the new slave race. So now they're a little upset. They want some slaves to do their work. While Enlil and Enki the matter were debating, Ninurta this decision into his hands took. With 50 heroes, an expedition to the Abzu he led. With weapons were they armed. In the forest and the steppes of the Abzu, the earthlings they chased. With nets they them captured. Male and female to the Eden they them brought, to do all manner of chores. In the orchards and in the cities they trained them. By the doings was Enki angered. By them was Enlil enraged. My expelling of the Adamu and the Tiamat you have overturned, so Enlil to Ninurta said. Let the mutiny once in the Abzu occurring, not in the Eden, be repeated. So to Enlil Ninurta said. With the earthlings in the Eden, the heroes are becalmed. A few more shars, and it will no longer matter. So did Ninurta to Enlil say. Enlil was not appeased with grumbling. Let it so be to his son, he said. Let the gold pile up quickly. Let us all to Nibiru soon return. In the Eden, the Anunnaki and the earthlings were with admiration observed. Intelligence they possessed. Of commands they had understanding. They took over all manner of chores. Unclothed, they were the task performing. Males and females among them were constantly mating, quick with their proliferations. In one shar, sometimes 4, sometimes more were their generations. As the earthlings grew in numbers, workers the Anunnaki had. With food the Anunnaki were not satiated. In the cities and in the orchard, in the valleys and in the hills, the earthlings for food were constantly foraging. In those days grains had not yet been brought forth. There was no ewe, a lamb had not been fashioned. About these matters Enlil to Enki angry words were saying. By your doings confusions were created. By you let salvation be devised. Now this is the account of how the civilized man was brought about. How by a secret of Enki, Adapa and TT in the Eden were brought forth. By the proliferation of the earthlings, Enki was pleased. Enki was worried. The lot of the Anunnaki was greatly eased. Their discontent was diminished. By the proliferation, the Anunnaki shunned toil. The workers as serfs were becoming. For 7 shards, the Anunnaki lot was greatly eased. Diminished was their discontent. By the proliferation of the earthlings, what by itself was growing for all, insufficient was. In 3 more shards of fish and fowl there was a shortage. What by itself grows, Anunnaki and earthlings did not satiate. In his heart, Enki, a new understanding was scheming. To create a civilized mankind in his heart, he conceived grains that are sown by them to be cultivated, ewes that become sheep, let them shepherd. In his heart, Enki, a new understanding was scheming. How this to attain he contemplated. The primitive workers in the Abzu he for this scheme observed. The earthlings in the Eden, in the city, and in the orchards he considered. What could for the task make them suited? What by life essences has not been combined? The offspring of the earthlings he observed. An alarming matter he noticed. By their repeated copulations, back toward their wild forebears they were degraded. Enki in the marshlands look about. On the rivers he sailed and observed. With him was only Isimud his visor, whose secrets kept. On the river bank, bathing the frolicking earthlings he noticed. Two females among them were wild with beauty, firm were their breasts. Their sight the phallus of Enki caused to water, a burning desire he had. Shall I not kiss the young ones? Enki his visor, Ismud was asking. I, the boat, will hither row, kiss the young ones, Ismud to Enki was saying. The boat thereto Ismud directed, from the boat to dry land Enki stepped. A young one to him Enki called, a tree fruit she to him offered. Enki bent down, the young one lying embraced. On her lips he kissed her, sweet were her lips, firm with ripeness were her breasts. Into her womb he poured his semen, and a mating he knew her. Into her womb she took the holy semen, by the semen of the Lord Enki she was impregnated. The second young one to him Enki called, berries from the field she him offered. Enki bent down, the young one he embraced. On her lips he kissed, sweet were her lips, firm were the ripeness of her breasts. Into her womb he poured his semen, and the mating he knew her. Into her womb she took the holy semen, by the semen of the Lord Enki was she impregnated. With the young one's stay, whether pregnancies come about, ascertain. So was Enki to his visor Ismud saying. Ismud by the young ones sat down. By the fourth count their bulges appeared. By the 10th count, the ninth having been completed, the first young one squatted and gave birth. By her a male child was born. The second one squatted and birth gave. By her a female child was born. At dawn and dusk, which a day demit, on the same day the two were born. The gracious one, dawn and dusk, thereafter in legends they were known. In the 93rd Shar, the two by Enki fathered, in the Eden were born. Words of the births of Ismud to Enki quickly brought. By the births Enki was ecstatic. Whoever such a thing has ever known, between Anunnaki and Earthling conception was obtained. Civilized man I have brought into being. To his visor Ismud, Enki gave instructions gave, a secret must my deed remain. Let the newborns by the mothers be suckled, thereafter into my household them be bring. Among the bulrushes and reed baskets have I them found, thus to all you will say. By their mothers were the newborns succored and nurtured. To Enki's household in Eridu thereafter Ismud them brought. Among the bulrushes and reed baskets have I them found, so did Ismud to all say. Here we have another one of those correlating stories that seems to show up a lot in many different cultures, and that is the reed basket story. And it's actually also found up in some prophecies that happened in the final days as well. Ninki to the foundlings a liking took. As her own children she raised them. Adapa the foundling, the boy she called. Titi one with life, the girl she named. Unlike all other earthling children, the twosome were. Slower to grow up than earthlings they were. Much quicker in understanding they were. With intelligence they were endowed. Of speaking with words capable they were. Beautiful and pleasant was the girl. With her hands she was greatly dexterous. Niki, the spouse of Enki, to Titi took a liking. All manner of crafts she was her teaching. To Adapa, Enki himself teachings gave. How to keep records he was him instructing. The achievements with pride Enki to Ismud was showing. A civilized man have I brought forth to Ismud, he was saying. A new kind of earthling from my seed has been created, in my image and after my likeness. From seed they food will grow, from ewes sheep they will shepherd. Anunnaki and earthlings henceforth shall be satiated. To his brother Enlil Enki word sent, from Nibiru Ki to Eridu Enlil came. In the wilderness a new kind of earthling has come forth. To Enlil was Enki saying, quick of learning they are, knowledge and craft work to them can be taught. Let us from Nibiru seeds that are sown bring down. Let us from Nibiru use that sheep become to earth deliver. Let us the new breeds of earthling farming and shepherding teach. Let Anunnaki and earthlings together satiated be. So was Enki to Enlil saying, akin to us, Anunnaki in many ways, indeed they are. Enlil to his brother said, a wonder of wonders it is. In the wilderness by themselves to have come about, Ismud was summoned. Among the bulrushes in reed baskets I them found, he said. Enlil the matter with graveness pondered. With amazement his head he shook. Indeed, a wonder of wonders it is. A new breed of earthling on earth has emerged. A civilized man has the earth itself brought forth. Farming and shepherding, crafts and tool making he can be taught. So was Enlil to Enki saying, let us of the new breed to a new word send. Of the new breed word to a new of Nibiru was beamed. Let seeds that can be sown, let ewes that sheep become, to earth be sent. So did Enki and Enlil to Anu the suggestion make. By civilized man, let Anunnaki and earthlings become satiated. Anu the words heard. By the word he was amazed, that by life essence one kind to another leads is not unheard of. To them words back he sent. That on earth a civilized man from the Adamu so quickly appeared. That is unheard of. For sowing and husbanding, great numbers are needed. Perchance the beings to proliferate are unable. While the savants on Nibiru to the matter contemplated, in the Eridu occurrences of import took place. Adapa, in mating with Titi Nu, into her womb he poured his semen. There was a conception, there was a birth giving. To twins, two brothers, Titi gave birth. Word of the birth to Anu on Nibiru was beamed. The twosome for conception was compatible. Proliferation by them can occur. Let seeds that are sown and ewes that sheep become to earth be delivered. Let on earth farming and shepherding begin. Let us all be satiated. So Enki and Enlil to Anu on Nibiru say, let Titi in the Eridu remain, the newborns to suckle and nurture. Let Adapa the earthlings to Nibiru be brought. So did Anu in his decision declared. Boy, that was a long book. But we have finished that tablet. I'm going to scroll up here and get the next tablet ready. That was very interesting. And I'm going to come down here and scroll. I got two listening. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I'm not sure which ones are listening, but I see here that OCD Grower, Weed Wars, Volunteer Agriculture. Thank you guys all for joining. PA Camouflage, first and last came in. That Cannabis Show. Thanks for all the love, guys, for stopping by and saying hi. Rob, Rebranding Knowledge. The 12th Planet. Yep. It's interesting how even nowadays they try to disguise it by continually doing away with more planets. Oh, let's redefine it and get away with Pluto. So now we don't even have 9. Oh, I see the Cannabis Show. Uncle Sir, thanks for joining in here too. You guys, some of you guys have got knowledge of this stuff already. I see, that's really cool. Uh-oh, it says I'm getting whistling sounds there. I hope that quit. I'm going to try to make it. Let me see if I can do it real quick. I hope it's not still going on. I have a messed up drive on my computer. And I got a question at the end of the show. What are the possibilities that some of those experiments are very closely related to what we're doing at CERN? Who's to say we're not coming full circle in this cycle and now repeating the quote-unquote mistakes of our parents and not paying attention to the fact that this was a planet of specially crafted life? Anthony West, thanks. Yeah, it's interesting on the dating of the pyramids that the possibility of them either being made by the Anunnaki near the end of the Ice Age, or some even believe they might possibly have been put together by Enoch, but I find a little bit of a difference in the descriptions. Sounds to me closer to the beginning of this age, and it was put together kind of as Nibiru key is what I actually believe in these things that we're reading, because it discusses a space station with a set up machine that has crystals in it, that has some type of laser pointing system that shoots through portals to look and measure different stars, all type things. If we had some type of machine in the inside of the pyramid, would quite possibly be possible. It says that the whole thing was built so that it could beam a signal to Nibiru from that position. That's what the sky beam is, that they're beaming back and forth, which makes me kind of think and sounds like some of these other pyramidal structures we're hearing about now with these quote-unquote plasma discharges off the top of them. Pardon me, gentlemen, this is intermission. I am going to smoke a cigarette, and for those of you who do not know, I am a medical cannabis patient in Florida. I just got my card renewed. Thank you, Florida. I can legally smoke weed here. They're going to soon make it legal for me to smoke flower, which I do because it's best for my illness anyway. But if you see me smoking and you come in on these and watch these presentations later, we do not encourage it if it's illegal in your area. If you do, however, have any number of illnesses, I will say as a person who uses it for medication, I do recommend it if it's legal for you. Avenue South Gill, thanks for coming in. And yeah, heavenly bodies described as angels. And if you go back and you read the stuff in the earlier tablets, when the Anunnakis are describing the earlier Tiamat and the wars and all these things, we're getting descriptions of asteroids, comets, all different types of heavenly bodies as being directed by some type of spirit being within them, which would make them possibly angels or some type of celestial body. I've explained on here before that what we call angels, there's actually many different orders of beings. Some are within this dimension, some are within other dimensions. We have in the different writings there being a possibility of 12 different dimensions, that there are beings that have been put into positions of command over different forces throughout creation. And even when we hear people tinkering with these forces in some of these writings, they discuss, whether or not they're going to upset even the spirit that's involved with it. One thing I learned when I was involved in occultic type things, these beings will approach you and talk to you in whatever form you're willing to accept. And we, as a culture, as a group, build a spiritual box that we then set our spiritual definitions within. And when they approach us within that box, they approach us according to those parameters. When I was young, even though my dad was a Southern Baptist pastor and we had no knowledge of previous family involvement in anything, I was visited by the little people. And it wasn't until later that we learned all the historical heritage we had from Celts and Romans and that type of stuff on one side of our family. So in a way, that was the box they originally approached me in. However, later in high school, not high school, but in college, as I was exploring the quote unquote ET type phenomena, I was approached by similar or same beings in that form as being what I was willing to speak to or talk with at that time. So that might be something just to throw out there as a possibility that they have the ability to kind of worm their way into our thoughts, so to speak, by coming at us by parameters we understand currently. That's exactly right. The Eden was where they were growing all the food for feeding the Anunnaki and the slaves that were actually working. The rest of the quote unquote primitives were roaming about, raping the land, so to speak, is the way they were seeing it. Very good idea, volunteer agriculture. Cheers. I do need to stop for a minute. I had a brother in our community get me some super lemon haze this week. It was a worthy investment. Super lemon haze isn't particularly my favorite. I've bought it a lot in the past because it's a mood elevator that was good for my wife to get over her morning depressions. So I would often use it in the morning on the way to work to get me motivated. Super lemon haze does work for pain, but you have to smoke more of it. It's not as quick acting as many of them for pain and for relaxation, but it does work for that. It helps take that edge away. Exactly, volunteer agriculture, and 666 is found in many different forms, but it even says within the scripture that it is the mark of a man. It is one who was of a created genetic line. But as Christians, we have taken this part of the story out of the possibility because we've attributed the whole of the Genesis account to the Creator. And I think that's kind of why we've got confused about where did Adam and Eve find all their children and all that kind of stuff. Or who did their children mate with and that kind of things, because it is still clear even by this text that the Creator created the original man that was on this planet, the one that they then took and genetically crossed up and messed with. And in the earlier tablet, when they were making the decision about whether or not to even do this, they're asking, is the Creator going to come and get us for doing this? And it's interesting how soon afterwards many things begin to be destructive. I'm not saying that that's 100% a direct correlation, but it's amazing how we see now that we are, as men, returning to this stage of genetic manipulation and quote unquote manipulation of the forces, whether that be gravity or other spiritual forces, that we're beginning to see these same destructive forces being unleashed. So maybe in some ways we're causing some kind of negative imbalance into this carefully structured spiritual and material world. Okay, volunteer agriculture, I'll look into that. Yeah, and for all you up there in the cold and the snow, we pray you guys stay safe, warm, that nothing adverse happens to you and your families, that you have peace in the storm. Hope a blessing for you in that. I know it can be a time of challenge. Hopefully you're prepared. I can tell you at one time my family was over prepared. uh, Actually, that is one of the possible beliefs. I'm back up here on Volunteer Agriculture's comment about the corrupted linguistics. Actually, if you follow from the Hindu text, the original men that were here were spiritually connected to this earth. by vision and hearing. That's the reason why there's so many references to being blind and being deaf. We were blinded and deafened to this world so that we would become their slaves. But I'm just throwing that out there. That is a very good point. Good morning, Alyssa Rockfam. Thanks for joining. Volunteer agriculture, once again, going into the higher thought forms and realms, we know that everything is held together by harmonics, and harmonics is somehow the force that binds the electrical universe and atoms together. So the vibration we put out affects everything around us. That being said, is the proof. It is written that there are 12 possible planes of existence or heavens, and that each one of these realms has within it both positive and negative forces that battle, and that this battle's been going on since the speaking of the creator of let light enter into darkness, and the beginning of love to create all of the love and light that we see, all of the material that we see. Somehow we know that water is very integral to all of this. I add that to the conversation. We heard earlier in this tablet about the upper waters and lower waters, somehow that even space is described as being a water. Something that we're not taught or understand, and that somehow that between the waters there is a firmament, somehow there is somewhere. I don't understand all this. I know that there's many different theories on it and beliefs on it, because people who take a theory to the next level believe it wholeheartedly. I think that's where we need to be careful, because there's not enough proofs either way to say substantially yet. I believe those things are going to be coming out. I believe that many of the current debates over our cosmology is for the purpose of dividing, not for the purpose of enlightening. If it was to enlighten, we would be having a coming together and not a separating. So I think that's where we need to really look at what's driving some of these movements, as opposed to what's being said, and evaluate what's being said in light of a more full vision of the world than what our media gives us. Oh, volunteer agriculture. Very interesting how you're taking this to the next level with DNA. And actually, that would make sense, because we were the color of the earth. We were said to be formed in earthen vessels and taken from the earth. And PA camouflage. In an earlier one, I explained that even as we read here the story of the Anunnaki, and we hear their power structure, their power, I should say not their power, their power structure and their power battles, we see how there was already a spiritual law amongst a heavenly order, whether that being extraterrestrials or angels or however you want to define it, and that each one of those orders has the ability to write laws within it. And it's when they began to try to deceive or change or make these laws favor them as opposed to the whole, that we begin to have this negative or dark influence that comes in, and hence we have these wars and battles. I think we heard the alphabet thing echoed in what we just read here, in the fact that he taught him to read and write the original civilized man for the purpose of recording everything. I think you're exactly right. It was just talked about this last scroll that we read, or last tablet, because these were pressed into clay. I'll take a couple more hits. I need to rest from racks for another minute or two here before we start the next one. Cheers. I recently did a study on the Easter Island people and the Rongo, and actually this morning, even before I was on here, I was listening to the final battle and the elimination of the long ears, and their own tales speak as if they are the remnants of the giants that were chased out of the Levant, or the what we would consider the Middle East. We also have records of some of them being the ones who crossed the land bridge up across Alaska, being the first ones to settle here. We have record that when they came here, that there was already a family of Anunnaki established in the Americas as an exile. So yeah, a lot of things we're starting to find as historical or ancient ruins match up to these stories, taking them out of the range of myth and more into the range of history, which is why I'm kind of reading this like a history lesson. We have record here of what kind of indicates an Adam and Eve. We have a story coming up which is going to be kind of a picture of what we see in Genesis of the Anunnaki going and raping and pillaging. But that's one coming up in an upcoming tablet. I don't remember exactly which one off the top of my head. In tablet 8, we have excuse me. The hazards of smoking live. Oh. We have the Adapta's understanding being such that it amazes even Nibiru's savants, which are their scientists. We have Anu ordering Adapa to be brought to Nibiru. Unearthing's first ever space journey. Enki reveals Adapa's perishing truth to Anu. Enki justifies his deed by the need for more food. Adapa is sent back to start farming and shepherding. Enlil and Enki create crop seeds and sheep lines. Ninurta teaches Ka'in crop cultivation. Marduk teaches Abel. Ninurta teaches Cain crop cultivation, and Marduk teaches Abel shepherding and tool making. Interesting. That matches with the story of Cain and Abel. Fighting over water, Cain strikes and kills Abel. Cain is tried for murder, sent into exile. So here we have another exile, the first man exile. Adapa and Titi have other offspring who intermarry. On his deathbed, Adapa blesses his son Sati as his heir. A descendant, Enkani, is taken by Marduk to Lamu. Everybody, smoking if you got them, take your last drink. I'm going to take a half-second intermission before I start reading this so I don't get interrupted in the middle. I had the idea of trying to play some of my son's music during this period of time, but I haven't had a chance to test it yet. But it's one of the things I'm going to attempt to do this week. Be right back. To my three guys who are still here, did the chirping noise end by any chance? I had a brother send me a new hard drive, but I've been worried about changing it out because I haven't figured out how to make sure I'm going to be able to get my operating system back on it yet. I used to know all that stuff, but those drawers seem to be sealed shut and locked right now, and I don't seem to have the energy to pop them open. Too much other real stuff going on in the real world right now that I have my brain power being burnt up with. But did the chirping noise end by any chance? I do apologize for those that listen to this and have to hear my computer chirping. Yeah, agriculture. It sounds like you've done a lot of the same study in areas that I have. I'm still waiting for an answer as to whether or not the chirping has stopped before I read on for a minute. It'd be interesting to sit and have you like chat between these, not just through chat, but possibly come on in the intermission period and add to our conversation. Um, this really isn't a show, and I mean it's kind of a show. What it is every week I read to my children growing up. Um, oh, cool, brother. Glad to know that. I might get with you later on a hangout and help me figure the stupid thing out. But I would read to my children every what we call the Sabbath. We would take a day of rest from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. I've been doing this since about 99, 2000. It was the first thing we did as far as changing. I mean, we still went to church on Sundays during that period of time. We just took a Saturday Sabbath. We did that for a couple of years, actually. That was our intermediary changeover from Christianity to our current set of beliefs. But during that period of time with the kids, we would sit down and we would read to them just straight out of Scripture. Wherever we left off the week before, we would continue on. I think by the time they left home, we had read through the Scriptures, the actual Bible, about 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times. We had read through many other texts as well. I will take a snapshot of that real quick in case you want to take that out of the chat so other people later do not have to get it there, buddy. There's only 2 in right now, so if you want to go ahead and delete that message I have here, I'll add that later. See, it's not really that they took our third eye away, they just made it blind. They closed it. They made it so that we have to see through a veil. We can't look directly into the world like we used to be able to. And there are certain things that were put onto this earth so that man would be able to find that realm in case anything happened to the word knowledge that was being transferred. And in the occulting of all knowledge, trying to set up their world system of power and control so that it remained in their families, they broke this knowledge up and threw it all across the world. Um, then they took and broke up, other things as well, different agricultures, but all these knowledges and truths have been disseminated across the earth. And it is as man begins to learn to communicate together again that we're sharing these things. And it's the reason why we're having such huge exponential growth, because all these truths are coming back together. And it's like throwing wood on a fire. Each piece of wood exponentially adds to the size of the fire. Has the chirping noise quit? Can somebody answer me that question yet? Very interesting VA culture. I've been asked to leave several churches because of asking questions about this path I'm on now. And I think I see Shriners, which is very interesting because my dad had a falling out with his family over the fact they were all Masons. And that was kind of my dad's thing for most of his life. And so I've been listening to stuff about that conflict for years. Things my dad told me that his dad had said, and all kinds of stuff that you just don't talk about because other spiritual forces seem to interfere when you do. I'm going to take it that the noise is ended. You're exactly right, brother. You are on the right path, and listen to that spirit within you, because even the Bible says you will be taught in spirit and truth. It says in the last days that the truth is going to be so divided amongst the earth, man will have to journey from place to place to find it. So if we are truly in the last days, then the Bible itself is only one of many books that has been hidden. So that's still chirping, crud. We'll try one more time. That means it's not activating the mic in my thing. I agree with you there, brother. I did the travel thing for about 8 years, and then with the birth of my son and the realization of the truth of a family structure, not only did I change my lifestyle, but I changed my desire to wander. And my family lived in basically 3 different places over 25 years. Myself spent 11 years in Kansas City, and then we spent 5 in Florida, and then 11 in Tennessee. And I'm here because of family and not wandering because of family now, because I've seen that, that part of the true path is what's left behind you and the mending of those things that have been broken in your past. Thank you. And finally acknowledge this mic, and I can actually somewhat hear a little bit of a difference in my ear. I need to make sure I get with somebody before I start my broadcast and make sure that chirp's not there. Maybe you can help me figure out how to check that beforehand later. I've had enough of that. All right, we're going to continue on for this tablet. Quick little drink. Let Adapa to the earth. Let Adapa the earthling to Nibiru be brought. So did Anu his decision declare. By the decision Enlil was not pleased. Whoever of this would have thought that by a primitive work and fashioning, like us, the being would become, with knowledge endowed, between heaven and earth will travel. On Nibiru the waters of long life he will drink, the food of long life eat. Like one of us Anunnaki shall the one of earth become. And once again, I wanted to show here that we have reference to a food of life and a drink of life. We saw once before that it brought the I believe it was Anzu. Uh, let me make sure I get the right guy. I believe it was Anzu. Um, out of stasis on Mars, and here we have a record of the fact that this drink and this food or bread is something that brings long life. And I believe it's also something that people like Hitler and other great leaders have hunted for, that there might be some hidden somewhere on Earth. Like us, one of Anaki shall the one of Earth become. So was Enlil and Enki and the other leaders saying. By the decision of Anu, Enki too was not pleased. Sullen was his face after Anu had spoken. After Enlil had spoken, with Enlil his brother Enki agreed. Indeed, who of us would have thought? So to the others did Enki say. The brothers sat and contemplated. Ninma with them also was deliberating. The command of Anu cannot be avoided to them, she said. And once again, I want to point out that as the leader of Nibiru, what he said in the position he was in was something that was locked in. And it's only by them coming up with something that is a new law are they able to override what he says. Let Adapa by our young ones to Nibiru be accompanied, his fright to diminish, to a new things explain. So did Ninki to the others say, let Ningizida and Dumuzi his companions be. By the way, Nibiru for the first time with their eyes also to see. By Ninma was the suggestion favored. Our young ones on earth born, of Nibiru are forgetting. Its life cycle by those of earth are overwhelmed. Let the two sons of Enki, as yet unmarried, to Nibiru also travel. Perchance bride there for themselves they also shall find. When the next celestial chamber from Nibiru did arrive in Sipar, Labrat, the vizier of Anu, from the chamber stepped off. I have come to fetch the earthling Adapa. So to the leaders he said. To the leaders to Labrat Adapa presented. Titi and her sons to him they also showed. Indeed, in our image and after our likeness they are. So did Labrat say. To Labrat, Ningizida, and Dumuzi, sons of Enki, were presented. To accompany Adapa on his journey they have been selected. To him Enki said, Anu his grandchildren to see will be pleased. So did Labrat say. To hear instructions, Enki Adapa to him summoned. To Adapa thus he said, Adapa to Nibiru, the planet whence we had come, you will be going. Before Anu our king you will come. To his majesty you will be presented. Before him you shall bow. Speak only when asked. To question, short answers give. New clothing you will be given, new garments put on. A bread of earth not found they will give. The bread is death, do not eat. And a chance an exceller to drink that you will give. The exceller is death, do not drink. Now, keep in mind that he's given, Enki is giving Adapa instructions that negate what he fears is going to happen if they go to the planet. And we see the bread of life and the cup of wine of life as being made negative in the eyes of man here. With you, Ningzida and Dumuzi, my sons will journey. To their words hearken, and you shall live. So did Enki Adapa instruct. This I shall remember, Adapa said. Enki Ningishida and Dumuzi summoned. To them a blessing and advice he gave. Before knew the king, my father, you are coming. To him you shall bow and homage pay. By princes and nobles, do not be coward. Of them you are the equals. To bring Adapa back to earth is your mission. By Nibiru's delights, be not charmed. This we shall remember, Ningishida and Dumuzi said. His young one, Dumuzi, Enki embraced. On the forehead he kissed him. The wise Ningishida Enki embraced. On his forehead he kissed him. A sealed tablet in the hand of Ningishida unseen he placed. To my father anew this tablet in secret you shall give. So did Enki to Ningishida say. Then the two with Adapa to Separ departed. To the place of celestial chariots they went. To Ilbrat, Anu's visor, the three of them themselves presented. To Ningishida and Dumuzi the garb of a Gigi was given. Like celestial eagles they were dressed. As for Adapa, his unkempt hair was shaven. His helmet, as that of an eagle, was given. Instead of his loincloth, a tight-fitting vestment he was made to wear. Between Ningishida and Dumuzi, inside that which ascends he was placed. When the signal was given, the celestial chariot roared and shuddered. In fright did Adapa cower and cry out. The eagle without wings is soaring. Notice that this is very much a description like a rocket. Upon his side, Ningishida and Dumuzi their arms placed. With soothing words they him calmed. When 1 league aloft they were borne, upon the earth they glanced out. Its lands they saw, by seas and oceans into parts separated. When 2 leagues aloft they were, the oceans to a tub grew smaller. The land was the size of a basket, and 3 leagues aloft they were. Again they cast a glance whence they had departed. The earth was now a small ball, by a sea of darkness, and a vastness swallowed. Once again Adapa agitated was. He cowered and cried out. Take me back, he shouted. Ningishida his hand on the neck of Adapa put. In an instant was Adapa quiet. When they on Nibiru landed, there was much curiosity. The children of Enki on earth born to see, even more so an earthling to encounter. A being from another world on Nibiru has arrived. So were the crowds shouting. With Ilbrat to the palace they were taken to be washed, and with perfumed oils anointed. Fresh and befitting garments they were given. Eating Enki's words, Adapa the new clothing did put on. In the palace nobles and heroes milled about. In the throne room princes and counselors gathered. To the throne room by Ilbrat they were led, Adapa behind him. Then the 2 sons of Enki. In the throne room before Anu the king they bowed. From his throne Anu stepped forward. My grandsons, he cried out. He hugged Dumuzi, he hugged Ningishida. With tears in his eyes he embraced them, he kissed them. To his right Dumuzi he bade to be sit. On his left Ningishida sat. Then Ilbrat to Anu the earthling Adapa presented. Does he our speech understand? Anu the king of Ilbrat inquired. Indeed he does. By the Lord Enki was he taught, Ilbrat so answered. Come hither, Anu said to Adapa. What is your name and your occupation? Forward Adapa stepped. Again he bowed. Adapa is my name, of the Lord Enki a servant. So did Adapa in his words speak. His speaking great amazement was causing. A wonder of wonders on earth has been attained, Anu declared. A wonder of wonders on earth has been attained, all the assemblage shouted. Let there be a celebration. Let us our guests thus welcome, Anu was saying. To the banquet room Anu, all who were assembled led. To the laden tables he happily gestured. At the laden table, bread of Nibiru Adapa was offered. He did not eat it. At the laden tables, auxiliar of Nibiru Adapa was offered. He did not drink it. By this I knew the king was puzzled, was offended. Why has Enki to Nibiru this ill-mannered earthling sent? To him the celestial ways reveal. Come now, Adapa. To Adapa Anu said, why did you neither eat nor drink? Our hospitality rejected. My master, the Lord Enki, commanded me, the bread do not eat, the auxiliary do not drink. So did Adapa, the king. Anu answered. How odd is this thing, Anu was saying. For what was Enki from an earthling our food and auxiliary prevented? He asked Ilbrat. He asked Dumuzi. Ilbrat the answer knew not. Dumuzi could not explain. He asked Ningazida. Perchance, in this lies the answer. Ningazida to Anzu said. The secret tablet that he carried hidden to Anu the king he then gave. Puzzled was Anu. Anu was concerned. To his private chamber he went, the tablet to decipher. Now this is the account of Adapa, of civilized man the progenitor, and how by his sons Cain and Abel satiation on earth was started. In his private chamber Anu the tablet seal broke open. Into the scanner the tablet he inserted. Messages from Enki to decipher. Adapa by my seed to an earthling woman was born. So did the message from Enki say. Likewise was TT by another earthling woman of my seed conceived. With wisdom and speech they are endowed. With Nibiru's long lifetime they are not. The bread of long living he should not eat. The elixir of long life he should not drink. To live and die on earth Adapa must return. Mortality his lot must be. By sowing and shepherding, by his offspring on earth satiation shall be. So did the Enki the secret of Adapa and his father to his father Anu reveal. By the secret message from Enki, Anu was astounded. Whether to angry be or laugh, he knew not. And brought his visors to his private chamber he summoned. To him he thus said, that son of mine, Ea, even Enki, his free ways with females has not mended. To have brought his visors the message on the tablet he showed. What are the rules? What is the king to do? Of his visor Anu inquired. Concubines by our rules are permitted. Of interplanetary cohabitation no rules exist. So did Ilbrat to the king respond. If damage there be, let it be restricted. Let Adapa forthwith to earth be returned. Let Ninguzida and Dumuzi longer stay. Anu then to Ninguzida to his private chamber summoned. Now you know what your father's message said. Of Ninguzida he inquired. Ninguzida, his head lower, with whispering voice he said, I know not, but guess I can. The licence of Adapa I have tested. Of Enki's seed he is. That indeed is the message to him, Anu said. Adapa to earth forthwith shall return. To be of civilized man, a progenitor his destiny shall be. As for you, Ninguzida, to earth with Adapa you shall return. Of civilized man at your father's side to become the teacher. So did Anu the king the decision make. The destiny of Adapa and Ninguzida he determined. To the assembled savants and nobles, princes and counselors, Anu and the other two returned. To the assembled words of decision Anu announced. The welcoming to the earthlings must not be overextended. On our planet he cannot eat or drink. Of his astounding abilities we have all seen. Let him to earth return. Let their offspring there on earth fields till, and in the meadows shepherd. To ensure his safety and avoid his agitation, Ninguzida with him back will travel. With him seeds of Nibiru of grains which multiply on to earth will be sent. Dumuzi the youngest where Shar with us shall stay. Then to earth with ewes and the essence of sheep he shall return. This was the decision of Anu. The king's words, all in agreement, their head bowed. At this appointed time, Ninguzida and Adapa to the palace of the celestial chariot were taken. Anu and Dumuzi, Ilbrat and counselors, nobles and heroes, to them farewell bade. There was a roaring, a shuddering, and the chariot was lofted. The planet Nibiru grew smaller, they saw. Then from horizon to zenith the heavens they saw. On their journey, Ningajita to Adapa, the planet gods explained. Of sun and earth, arid the moon, to him lessons he gave. Of how the months chase one another, and how year is counted, him he taught. When to earth they returned, to his father Enki, Ningajita, all that had happened related. Enki laughed and struck his loins. To all went as I expected, with glee, he said. Except the detention of Dumuzi, that is a puzzle, so did Enki say. By the prompt return of Ninguzida and Adapa, Enlil was greatly puzzled. What is the matter? What on the Nibiru transpired? Of Enki and Ninguzida, he inquired. Of Ning- yeah. Let Ninma too be summoned. Let her too of what transpired here, Enki to him said. After Ninma arrived, to Enlil and to her Ninguzida all did tell. Enki, his cohabitation with the earthling females also related. No rules have I broken. Our satiation I have ensured. So Enki to them said. No rules did you break. The fates of Anunnaki and earthlings by a rash deed you determined. Okay, so here I want to stop real quick, and he's saying you may not have broken the earthly or secular rules, but the rules of fates of these two beings, you have put something into play, which means there is a higher set of rules than just the ones written. And they are rules of the fates are actually written in other places. So did Enlil in anger say, now the lot is cast, destined by fate is overtaken. With fury was Enlil seized. With anger he turned and left them standing. To Eridu Marduk came, by his mother, Damkina he summoned. The odd goings to verify of his father and brother he demanded. Anu, by the civilized man, was enthralled. To at once all on earth satiate he commanded. So they to Marduk only part of the truth revealed. By Adapa and TT Marduk was impressed. To the boys he took a liking. While Ninguzida Adapa is instructing, let me the boys' teacher be. So did Marduk to his father Enki and Enlil say. Let Marduk teach one, let Lenir to teach the other. To them Enlil responded. I think that what we have here could possibly be the beginning of the separation of the occults in a way. Um, Sorry, for some reason I just read has completely disappeared from my screen. um, wow, that's weird. I apologize. I may reread something. I knew by the civilized man was enthralled, to at once all of earth satiate he commanded. So they to Marduk only part of the truth revealed. By Adapa and TT Marduk was impressed, the boys he took a liking. While Ninguzida Adapa is instructing, let me the boys' teacher be. So did Marduk to his father Enki and Enlil say, let Marduk teach one, let Ninurta teach the other. To them Enlil responded. I believe this may also be where we have a separation of the idols, so to speak. These are my students. And Eridu Ninguzida with Adapa and Titi stayed. Numbers and writing Adapa he taught. The twin who was first in birth, Ninurta, to Badtabara his city took. Cain, he who in the field food grows, he called him. To dig canals for watering he taught him. Sowing and reaping he was teaching. A plough from the wood of trees Ninurta for Cain made, with it a tiller of the land to be. The other brother, son of Adapa, by Marduk to the meadow was taken. Abel, he of the watered meadows, his name was thereafter called. How to build stalls Marduk taught, for shepherding to start. The return of Dumuzi they awaited. When the shar was completed, Dumuzi to earth returned. The essence seed of sheep used for the growing with them he brought. Four-legged animals of Nibiru to another planet, the earth he conveyed. His return with essence seed of ewes was the cause for much celebration. Into the care of his father Enki, Dumuzi with his precious cargo returned. The leaders they then got together. How to proceed with the new breed they considered. Never before was there a ewe on earth. A lamb was never to earth from the heavens been dropped. A she-goat has never before of her kid given birth. Something else I want to mention is the early sacrifices that we see both in Christianity, Judaism, and many of the pagan ceremonies were sheep and wheat. Weaving of sheep's wool has never before been established. The Anunnaki leaders, Enki and Enlil, Ninmah and Ningishita, who the creators were, a creation chamber, a house of fashioning to establish, decided. Upon the pure mound of the landing place, in the Cedar Mountains, it was established. Near where the excellar seeds by Ninmah brought were planted, there was the creation chamber established. There was the multiplying of the grains and of the ewes on earth begun. Of Cain for sowing and reaping, Ninurta was the mentor. Of Abel, the arts of ewe and lamb, rearing and shepherding, Marduk was the mentor. When the first crops were reaped, when the first sheep matured, let there be a celebration of the first, Enlil a decree proclaimed. Before the assembled Anunnaki, the first grains and the first lambs were presented. At the feet of Enlil and Enki, Cain by Ninurta guided his offspring placed. At the feet of Enlil and Enki, Abel by Marduk guided his offering placed. Enlil to the brothers gave a joyful blessing, their labors he extolled. Enki his son Marduk embraced, the lamb for all to see he raised. Meat for eating, wool for wearing to earth has come, Enki said. Now this is the account of the generations of Adapa. And the killing of Abel by Cain, and what thereafter transpired. I'm going to take a quick drink, and I have not ingested enough nicotine, obviously, because I am stiffening up, which is also part of sitting here. Balls for life. I don't know if I said anything, but thank you for joining earlier. Thank you guys for continuing on and chatting. Mangrow Genetics. Thanks for visiting. I still peek in on your work occasionally. I really like the way you grow them plants. Okay. After the celebration of first was over, sullen was Cain's face. By the lack of Enki's blessing, greatly he was aggrieved. As to their task, the brothers returned. Abel before his brother was boasting. I am the one who abundant spring, who the Anunnaki satiates, who gives strength to the heroes, who wool for their clothing provides. Cain by his brother's words was offended. To his boasting strongly he objected. It is I who the plain luxuriates, whose furrows with grains makes heavy, in whose fields birds multiply, in whose canals fish become abundant. Sustaining bread by me is produced, with fish and fowl the Anunnaki's diet I variate. On and on the twin brothers each other disputed. Through the winter time they argued. When the summer began and it was not raining, the meadows were dry, the pastures dwindled. Into the field of his brother Abel his flocks drove, from the furrows in the canals to drink water. By this Cain was angered. To move the flocks away, his brother he commanded. Farmer and shepherd, brother and brother, word of accusation uttered. They spat on each other. With their fists they fought. Greatly enraged, Cain stone picked up. With it he Abel his head struck. Again and again he hit him until Abel fell, his blood from him gushing. When Cain his brother's blood saw, Abel, Abel, my brother, he shouted. Motionless on ground did Abel remain. From him his soul had departed. By the brother whom he had killed, Cain remained. For a long time he sat crying. Titi it was who of the killing was first to know, by a premonition. In a dream vision, as she was sleeping, Abel's blood she saw, in the hand of Cain it was. Adapa from his sleep she awakened. Her dream vision to him she told. A heavy sorrow fills my heart. Did something terrifying happen? So did Titi to Adapa say, greatly agitated she was. In the morning the two from Eridu departed. To the whereabouts of Cain and Abel they went. In the field they found Cain. By the dead Abel he was still seated. A great cry of agony Titi shouted. Adapa spread mud on his head. What have you done? What have you done? To Cain they shouted. Silence was Cain's answer. To the ground he threw himself and wept. To Eridu's city Adapa returned. What had happened to the Lord Enki he told. With fury Enki Cain confronted. Accursed you shall be to him, he said. From the Eden you must depart. Among the Anunnaki and the civilized earthlings you shall not stay. As to Abel in the fields, his body cannot for the wild birds remain. As the Anunnaki custom is, he in a grave below a stone pile shall be buried. How able to bury Enki, how able to bury Enki to Adapa and Titi showed, for the custom to them was not known. Okay, so here we have the first building of the dolmens by humans. For 30 days and 30 nights was Abel by his parents mourned. To Eridu for judgment Cain was brought. The exile sentence to pronounce Enki wished. For his deed Cain himself must be slain. So did Marduk with anger say. Let the seven who judge be assembled. So did Nirnerta of Cain the mentor say. Whoever such in assembling ever heard, Marduk shouted, that for one not of Nibiru Anunnaki leaders shall judge be called? Is it not enough that one by Nimerta mentored, the one by me favored was killed? Is it not that as Nimerta Anzu did vanquish, so did Cain against his brother rise? Like the fate of Anzu, Cain's fate should be, his life breath to be extinguished. So did Marduk in anger to Enki and Lil and Nimerta say. Nimerta by the words of Marduk was saddened. Silence, not words, his answer was. Let me with Marduk my son words in private have, to them Enki said. When in Enki's private chambers he and Marduk were, my son, to Marduk Enki softly spoke, your agony is great. Let us not agony with agony compound. A secret that on my heart is heavily emburdened, let me to you tell. Once upon a time, by the river I strolled, two earthly maidens my fancy caught. By them from seed were Adapa and Titi conceived, a new kind of earthling, a civilized man. By that upon the earth was brought, whether they to procreate were able, our king anew in doubt was. By the birth of Cain and Abel were anew in the council of Nibiru convinced. A new phase of Anunnaki presence on this planet was welcomed and approved. Now that Abel had been slain, and if Cain too shall be extinguished, satiation to an end would come, mutinies would be repeated, all that was achieved shall crumble. No wonder that to Abel a liking you took, the son of your half brother he was. Now, on the other one have pity, let the line of Adapa survive. So did Enki with sadness a secret to Marduk his son reveal. By the revelation Marduk was at first astounded, then by laughter he was overcome. Of your love-making prowess much to me was rumored. Now of that convinced I am. Indeed, let Cain's life be spared. To the ends of the earth let him be banished. So did now Marduk from anger to laughing changing, to his father say. In Eridu judgment upon Cain by Enki was pronounced. Eastward, to a land of wandering, for his evil deed Cain must depart.
That his life must be spared, he and his generations shall be distinguished. By Ningishita was the life essence of Cain altered, that his face a beard should not grow. Cain's life essence Ningishita changed. With his sister Awan as a spouse, Cain from the Eden departed. To the land of wandering he set his course. Now the Anunnaki sat and among themselves wondered. Without Abel, without Cain, who shall for us the grains grow and the bread make? Who shall be the shepherd, the ewes multiply, wool for clothing provide? Let by Adapa and Tt more proliferation be. So did the Anunnaki say. With the blessing of Enki, Adapa his spouse Tt knew again and again. One daughter, another daughter, each time again and again were born. In the 95th Shar, a son Adapa and Tt finally had. Sati, he who life begins again, Tt him named. By him were the generations of Adapa counted. And do notice that Tati and Seth are very similar in structure. Seth being the term used in the scripture, I believe, of the following line of Adam. I'm going to take a pause here for just a minute. I'm having a little Crohn's disturbance going on. Oh, I interrupted my wheatgrass habit for 3 days because the local store didn't have fresh wheatgrass. And even though I have some powdered wheatgrass, it's not very pleasant. And I decided today, after waking up and feeling that I hadn't drinking it for several days, to drink some of the powdered stuff. I made it through the 30-minute mark on all right, and I'm now, I believe, an hour and a half, 2 hour mark, and it is causing me to have a bit of a queasiness and pain. I'm going to pause here for just 1 minute. Oh, the realities of having Crohn's, folks. I've managed to make it 3 broadcasts without any major interruption. But it makes me a little dizzy sometimes. And right now, it's an apartment. It'll pass in just a minute, bud. I've got some kratom in my drink, and it'll go through behind the food I eat. Just take a little minute and see what you guys are talking about. I'm pausing this. I 2 years ago had 7 places that I could feel the food and all pass through. That's how raw my gut was. I'm down to 2 now. Um, I started wheatgrass, I guess 5 months ago now. It was a month or 2 before my wife left, and she's been gone for 3 months. But amazingly, I can tell when I skip it for several days because the pain aspect of it is more intense. I guess somebody's going to watch this later and needs to understand a little bit about it. Pardon me. The cannabis euphoria takes the edge off. I've actually been getting well enough that my kratom I take about every 6 hours now. When I was at the height of my sickness, I was taking every 2 to 3 hours and twice the dose I'm taking. So thanks, PA. I appreciate that, putting the timelines together. My kids kind of did it while we were reading to them. They would spout out stuff about how it matched this line or that line, things that we'd read elsewhere. And it's funny how now that we're seeing this new revised archaeological timeline on Earth, how these quote unquote monolithic monuments are lining up with being built during this time. And if we take and we examine that, I think that we could actually identify each one of these particular cities that are described. We could find the landmarks like the giant stones for the pad of the rockets and the evidence of some type of communication work being done through the pyramids, um, even to the spiritual side of when people go into the pyramids. Um, but as we read other things later, you'll see where they're bits and pieces of the same stories, almost exactly. Little bitty additions and little bitty differences, and I think those are the things that, as we examine, we'll find the truth of what they're trying to do to us. Yeah, it takes about 2 minutes or so to pass through. It's about there. This is one of the shorter scrolls. It looks like I'm a pretty good ways through it, over 2/3 of the way through it. In all, 30 sons and 30 daughters Adapa and Titi had. Of them, tillers of the land and shepherds for the Anunnaki toiled. By them did satiation to Anunnaki and civilized earthlings come back. In this 97th Shar to Sati, a son by his espouse Azura was born. By the name Enshi in the annals was recorded. Master of humanity meant his name. By Adapa his father, writing in numbers he was made to understand, and who the Anunnaki were, and all about Nibiru, by Adapa Enshi was told. To Nibiru Kai, by the sons of Enlil, he was taken. Secrets of the Anunnaki, him they taught. How the perfumed oils for anointing Nanar, Enlil's on earth the eldest him showed. How the auxiliar from the Inbu fruits to prepare. Ishkur, Enlil's youngest, him instructed. It was since then by civilized man the Anunnaki lords were called, and of the rites of worship of the Anunnaki that the beginning was. Thereafter to Enshi, by his sister, Nome, a son was born. Kuin he of the kilns, his name had the meaning. For by Niberta in Badtabira he was tutored, of furnace and kiln there he learned, how with bitumens fires to make, how to smelt and refine he was taught. In the smelting and refining of gold, for Nibiru he and his offspring toiled. In the 98th Shar did this matter come about. Now this is the account of the generations of Adapa after Cain was exiled, and the heavenly journeys of Enki, and the death of Adapa. In the 99th Shar, to Kun a son was born. By Mualit, a half sister, Kunin he was conceived. Malalu, he who plays, she named him. In music and song he excelled. For him Ninurta a single harp made, a flute for him he shaped. Hymns to Ninurta Malulu played. With his daughters before Ninurta they sang. The spouse of Malulu, the daughter of his father's brother was. Duna was her name. In the 100th Shar, since the count on earth had begun, a son to Malulu and Duna was born. Their firstborn he was, Irid, he of the sweet waters. His mother Duna him named. Him Dumuzi how wells to dig had taught, for flocks in distant meadows water to provide. As I'm reading this, something's coming to my head, and I'm realizing something that I need to look up and you might be interested in. We have here the description of how each one of these technologies is given to the people of the earth and the name of the people that they were given to. We also have in the Bible these same things being described as being given to Cain's line. And here I was thinking Cain was. These are the generation of Adapa after Cain was exiled. Somehow I missed exactly which. It doesn't really tell which particular person, either Cain or Adapa or Seth, that these are coming from. So that's very interesting. I need to do a correlation on that. I'll get back to reading. Him Dumuzi how wells to dig had taught, for flocks in distant meadows waters to provide. It was there by the wells in the meadows that shepherds and maidens gathered, where espousing and proliferation by civilized man exceedingly abounded. In his days the Gigi to earth were more frequently coming. To observe and see from the heavens they increasingly abandoned. To watch and see what on earth was transpiring they increasingly desired. To be with them on Lamu, Enki Marduk beseeched. To watch and see what on earth was transpiring Marduk more fervently wished. At a well in the meadows did Irid his spouse meet. Barakah was her name, the daughter of his mother's brother she was. At the conclusion of the 102nd Shar, a son to them was born, by the name Enki-Me. By Enki-Me understanding, in the annals he was called. Wise and intelligent he was, numbers he quickly understand. About the heavens and all matters celestial he was constantly curious. To him Lord Enki took a liking. Secret once to Adapa revealed, to him he told. Of the family of the sun and the 12 celestial gods, Enki him was teaching, and how the months by moon were counted, and the years by the sun, and how by Nibiru shars were counted, and how the counts by Enki were combined, how the Lord Enki, the circle of heaven, the 12 parts divided. Interesting that the Mayans kept a similar calendar. A constellation to each one how Enki had assigned. 12 stations in the grand circle he arranged. How to honor the 12 Anunnaki great leaders by names the stations were called. So here he renames the stations in the skies by the Anunnaki leaders' names. To explore the heavens, Enki was eager. 2 celestial journeys he did make. And this is the account of Enki's journeys to the heavens, and how the Igigi troubles and intermarriages by Marduk were started. To be with Marduk in the landing place, Enki was sent. From there Marduk in a rocket ship to the moon did him take. There what Marduk from his father Enki had learned, to Enki he did teach. When the earth Enki returned, to be with Utu and Sabar, the place of the chariots he was sent. There a tablet for writing what he was learning by Utu to Enki was given. Utu in his bright abode, a prince of earthlings him installed. The rites him he taught, the functions of priesthood to begin. In Sapar with his spouse Inini, a half sister, Inkimi resided. All right, everybody, we have right here the beginning of a priesthood. We have a beginning of the priesthood of Anunnaki, a beginning of a religious structure. In Sapar with his spouse, Idini, a half sister, Inkmi resided. To them in the 104 Shar a son was born. Matushal his mother him named, who by the bright waters raised the name meant. It was after that that Inkmi on his second journey to the heavens went. This time too Marduk was his mentor and companion. In a celestial chariot heavenward they soared, toward the sun, and away from it they circled. To visit the Agigi on the moon by Marduk he was taken. To him the Agigi a liking took, a civilized earthling from him they learned. Of him it is in the annals said that to the heavens he departed, that in the heavens he stayed till the end of his days. Interesting. That's the same description given to Enoch. Before Enki to the heavens departed, all that in the heavens he was taught. In writings Enki a record made, for his sons to know he wrote it. All that is in the heavens, in the family of the sun he wrote down, and about the quarters of the earth and its lands and its rivers too. To the hands of Matushal, his firstborn son, the writings he entrusted, with his brothers Ragim and Gaidad, to study and abide by. In the 104th Shar was Matushal born. To the Agigi troubles of what Marduk had done he was a witness. By his spouse Adnat a son to Matushal was born. Lumak, mighty man, was his name. In his days conditions on the earth became harsher. The toilers in the field and the meadow raised complaints. As a workmaster, the Anunnaki, Lumak appointed the quotas to enforce, the rations to reduce. So here we have the first slave structured mechanism put into place. Control their food and control their output. Interesting how they strive to do that to this day. In his days it was that Adapa his death time attained. And when Adapa knew that his days to an end were coming, let all my sons and sons of sons assemble themselves to me, he said, that before I die I might bless them, and words to them speak before I die. And when Sati and the sons had gathered, where is Cain, my firstborn son? Adapa of them all asked. Let him be fetched to them all, he said. Before the Lord Enki, Sati his father's wish presented. What to be done of the Lord he asked. Enki then Ninurta summoned. Let the banished one, of whom the mentor you were, to Adapa's deathbed be brought. In his bird of heaven, Ninurta betook himself. To the land of wandering he flew. Over the lands he roamed. From the skies for Cain he searched. And when he him found, like on eagle's wings came to Adapa, he brought. When of his son's arrival Adapa was informed, let Cain and Sati before me come, Adapa said. And I think it's interesting that in much of poetic literature, in many different scriptures, we hear this frame or this term, eagle's wings, on eagle's wings, on eagle's wings. And we have it here as part of the description of the craft used for bringing them back and forth. And we have a very interesting stamping on some of the runes in ancient Sumeria showing Enki sitting inside of a saucer-like craft that has two wings. And interestingly, that can also be somewhat of a description of an angel. When of his son's arrival Adapa was informed, let Cain and Sati before me come. Before their father the two came. Cain, the firstborn on his right, and Sati on the left. And the eyesight of Adapa having failed for recognition, his son's faces he touched. And the face of Cain on the right was beardless, in the face of Sati on the left that with beard was. And Adapa put his right hand on the head of Sati, the one on the left, and he blessed him and said, Of your seed shall the earth be filled, and of your seed as a tree with 3 branches, mankind a great calamity shall survive. And he put his left hand on the head of Cain on his right, and to him said, For your sin of your birthright you are deprived, but your seed 7 nations shall come. In a realm set apart they shall thrive, distant lands shall they inhabit. But having your brother with a stone killed, by a stone will be your end. Now, I want everybody to think on these different blessings this week, because you have here not only the 3 that come after, which we consider the line of Noah, but you have 7 other kings which we find prophesied of being in place in the last time. So we have 2 separate nations separated here, which we're going to have a battle of course, because the birthrights are involved. And when Adapa finished these words, saying, his hands dropped, and he sighed and said, Now summon my spouse Titi, and all the sons and all the daughters. And after my spirit leaves me, to my birthplace by the river carry me. And with my face toward the rising sun, there bury me. Like a wounded beast, Titi cried out, and to her knees by Adapa's side she fell. And the 2 sons of Adapa came and saw T in a cloth his body wrapped. In a cave by the banks of a river by Titi shown, Adapa they buried. In the midst of the 93rd Shar was he born. By the end of the 108th he died. For long life for an earthling he had. The life cycle of Enki he did not have. And after Adapa was buried, Cain to his mother and brother farewell bade. Ninurta to the bird of heaven, to the land of wandering him returned. And in the distant realm Cain had sons and daughters, and he for them a city built. And as he was building, by a falling stone he was killed. In the Eden Lumach as a workmaster the Anunnaki served. In the days of Lumach did Marduk and the Agigi with earthlings intermarry. So here we have the Anunnaki and the earthlings intermarrying. Well, folks, that is the end of the 8th tablet. And that's the thing about we can sit and watch a TV series in bits and pieces week to week, and which is kind of why I structured this way, and kind of what kind of developed with me and the kids, and kind of break it up and listen to it and think about it throughout the week in bits and stages. And as these type of things are read, it's kind of amazing how, and I'm going to use the term, the creator will show that he is real by bringing other people saying similar things, or bringing up similar points, or bringing up points that relate throughout our week. And it's thereby that we begin to see that this is a picture of light and darkness, and that there really is a battle going on, and this is a true struggle between brothers, and not just one set of brothers, but brothers of generation after generation. Vegan Dolls, thanks for joining us and listening. Poor Cain. I agree and I disagree. um, Spiritual law has always been in place. What you deal out returns to you. And the taking of life has always been something that is the highest order of disruption within the spiritual law. And we use the term Cain being the first murderer. We see here that there seems to be, as far as generationally, what we considered Homo sapien, he would be the first Homo sapien murderer. And that he was given mercy by the authority to continue a life. And it was only at the point of a final judgment, so to speak, by his father, as his father was passing, was an actual judgment for his crime passed upon him, something that, according to spiritual law, should be done immediately upon death. Um, so we see here kind of the beginning of uh, refuge cities or refuge cities or refuge lands. We see extending of sentences added into the law. We see all kinds of things that now affect physical as well as spiritual law that occurred because of the actions of Cain. And we see that judgment came about while he was still alive. He was judged in the same way. His life ended the same way that he ended a life, and thereby showing that there is balance within this universe in a karma way, because not one person individually chose whether or not he died. And when we read some other texts later, like Jubilees and my brain, Joshua, and a couple of those others, this story is frequented in all of them, and we get different pieces to these stories, and we see different correlations. It seems like the same spiritual law is trying to be taught, even though different particular circumstances may be read into the story. The seven secret sciences. I believe I need to say this lightly and gently because the last time I did this, I think I got a spiritual backlash. Um, as the final, and I use this term loosely, evolution of man occurs, or the next ascension, or the return and the ascension, or whatever terminology you put to the next stage of our spiritual growth into another being. PA, thank you. See you. Um, whatever you want to call that time, um, oh, how to say this? What is occurring now is a putting back together of a puzzle that was taken apart. And it says as we enter into that time, the spiritual realm is going to increase to such a great level that the old men are going to dream dreams, the young kids are going to prophesy. And every group likes to say that's going to happen to our group. We're going to be that group that happens to. But if you go back and you read the scripture says he pours it out on all mankind. It also says that all these truths have been divided. So the seven secret sciences are protected by the division and are coming back together, but within them is hidden the yin and the yang, the knowledge of good and the knowledge of evil, and they have tried to take away our understanding of that so that we will pollute or try to continue to work with these two things together. And I believe that's why the outpouring of the spirit or the light occurs, is because it blows all that darkness out where we can see it. It brings it into the open. Like this reading and seeing that, hey, we've got two stories here that have very similar stories, but there's definite differences. One is saying that it was Cain's line, the other one's saying, no, it was a line that was left behind. But as we read the story, we see that there's really no clear definition within it as to which one it was, something I'm going to explore this week. Um, PA, mankind has always had blood. All the ancient teachings teach that our life or our soul is somehow intertwined or pieced into our blood. Um, Somehow the blood coursing through your body is connected to thought, is connected to emotion, is connected to will, to those soul type things that we do. Um, so I believe that's why blood has always been taken very serious, both within an animal and within a man, because there seems to be an indication that all things are created with soul, with an identity. Um, I believe that in what some call a holographic universe, that it is all those individual identities meshing together in this one giant picture that shows that there has to be a creator. Okay, going by flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. Yes, that was discussing the vessel. It does not indicate that her particular life was Adam's, because it says the Creator put life within her, which indicates she had some type of new type of blood. Which, if you go back to what we're just now reading, um, a genetic disturbance or a genetic addition would be a new type of blood. Um, there's you got to remember that these are factual allegories, I guess is the way to say it. They've been purposely hidden from us and diluted and changed, little words changed, and that's given redefinitions. And in the early stages of reading, it's easy to still think within those parameters. And but it's indicate that at the first creation, the creation done by the Creator, when man and woman was created in the first description of creating, that life force was placed within them. So that blood was within man before all these changes occurred to man. If you've studied any of the Vedas and the description of man before Adam, the blood was sacred even then. Um, and you'll find that it's always the darkness trying to take blood as the ultimate destruction of light. So it's like, oh, I just caught something. It says they traded in souls. They traded men like souls, and our soul is locked into our life, is locked into our blood, is locked into the sacrificial system, and they're trying to steal and destroy souls. So there might be something there to think about. But the Adam and Eve and the dividing of Adam and Eve, it seems like we have several Adams and Eves described in these stories. Um, and that Adam and Eve is kind of like the title God. It's an archetype of each one of these lines beginning, or the beginning of each. I really don't know if it's races or if they are the pre-genealogies, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, that type of thing. Um, we have no understanding of the Earth connection they had, but it's obvious from Paleolithic drawings done by them that they were way far more in tune with the Earth in a spiritual manner and a spiritual vision than we are now, because their drawings have many, many different layers. And that is very indicative of somebody who's taken a spiritual journey, or has crossed the veil, so to speak. You'll find those same layers and artists who have crossed over the veil. Um, you'll find some of the same symbologies in those pictures as those who have crossed through the veil. Um, Man, as he lost touch with that inner thing, discovered that there were plants put on the earth to re-spark that. And there were laws put into place as to how that was to happen and to occur to prevent us from contacting the wrong spiritual authorities and different forces and different things like that. And these are all some of those seven secret sciences you were talking about that have been taken and spread out and robbed from us. I believe they are the same sciences that were taught to the Magi during the period of time that we have where, uh, yeah, brain short circuit. Oh, Daniel, the time of Daniel and the three leaders from Israel. And as I was discussing earlier, with each one taking and teaching a different person, a different quote unquote skill, you have a dividing of science, you have the dividing of knowledge, you have a specializing, you have a caste system being set up, you have rules being put into place to create divisions and keep man separated. Um, Vegas brother, thanks for joining us. Cheers, my friend. To you, brother. May your day be good. And if I haven't spoken a special blessing over you today, I hope that you all find peace in your home. I know those that are going through the storm I spoke over earlier. I hope that everything's safe for them during that period of time. But going back to that point, it's kind of like the Babel story that we get with the division of the languages, trying to stunt man from growing to the same point of understanding or knowledge that our Anunnaki masters had, thereby keeping us at a lower education or knowledge level, thereby keeping us enslaved or in gratitude of or in need of a higher power to keep these machines going, keep these sciences interlocked. And by dividing it up, man couldn't, so to speak, reach through the veil himself. Um, and now we have descriptions of similar sciences being unlocked by man that was unlocked by the Anunnaki. We have similar morality questions being placed throughout all of our media about, okay, if there is a creator and there is a being of light, then how are we transgressing what he created? These are all questions that have been repeated over and over. And I believe these stories were put out there to show us that that creator does react to these things, that he did put into place spiritual law that causes imbalances in this world, the material world, when things happen within the spiritual world. And I believe that this falling away from morality, so to speak, and kindness and love is purposeful to drive us away from understanding these things and putting together to understand that we don't have to have the machines to look through to the spiritual side. It's already within us. Mankind had it made within us by the creator, and it's been all these changes that have taken it to where we have to find it in a new way. Exactly, PA Camouflage. During the time of the Dark Ages, the church wanted to seize control of that priest class system, and thereby the slaves who were working for the Anunnaki. And now we have a period of time on Earth more and more of their children are destroyed out. More and more of them seem to be disappearing or not showing up as often in the public eye. And as they aren't seen in the public eye as much, people are losing faith or belief in them. And so man, being the intermediary, steps in and tries to take over those positions of leadership or authority that are vacated by leaving Anunnaki, and take over the church, which is a control system, take over the government of the kingship, which is a control system, and thereby benefiting their pockets and enriching themselves, as opposed to setting man free, which is what we're heading for. And they did that in the Middle Ages by outlawing reading and writing, by destroying all the texts that they could find. But just as is prophesied by the Creator in texts that are clearly angelically written, um, this knowledge is going to be found, and it's going to be unlocked. And when we find it, we're going to understand way more than we need now, and all of mankind is going to have to make these same decisions. And these decisions are going to decide the fate of the great world, the fate of the great world's destruction, or the movement from the fifth cycle into the sixth cycle in this case. And later, that same cycle will repeat itself again as we move from the sixth cycle into the final cycle, or the recreation as we see it. Um, let's see what we got here. In genetics, hybrids are normally much stronger or carry the best genes of both parents, thus becoming greater than the originating genetics. And it's interesting that even the Anunnaki put into the name uh, um, of one of theirs as being the same one that we kind of use as Rakim or Nephilim, which means ancient man of renown or strong man or a great man, and that these were giants. And that they may not have been giants as big as the ones at the time of Titan, but these were giants of a lower order that often reached somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from, guesstimations of 30 feet to hundreds of feet tall, and that the original Titans were thousands of feet to miles tall, which means this planet must have been much bigger during that time. We see evidence of much bigger things living on the Earth at this time, which is why it brings us back to the story of Titan and the destruction of Titan, and Earth being only the head of Titan, its body being destructed and being wrapped up in the asteroid belt or the hammered bracelet. And if there's been a lot of people lately, and I haven't seen the recent numbers, but they have taken and tried to figure out the size of what Titan might have been. And to have a creature a mile tall would have been nothing on Titan. It would have been in proportion to what we grow on Earth, and could very well be found sleeping on the Earth in the shape of mountains and stuff, which brings the whole mud fossil thing into aspect, because the Titans in the stories of their world, in their wars, all come to a sudden end, are all trapped, some within the earth, some upon the earth. So I believe this gives credence to those legends. I think what's real cool about this genetic thing that's going on right now is they're being able to start to put origins to genetics. And like this story of the sheep and the grain, they're finding that the genetics of sheep and grain are actually different than other genetic animals which were upon the earth, and that those genetics are actually altered to work for humans. And it's interesting how this story says that is what occurred. And to me, the amazing part is we sit and say our fathers 6,000 years ago, when this stuff was stamped into stone, was ignorant. And yet they're discussing DNA and stuff like that. The flood and the mud. Now, PA, in the ancient texts, there are records of at least two great floods. There's records of, I believe it's two fires, or maybe it was one fire and one coming fire. Um, Anyways, I believe the six destructions or the six changes can be found in some of these. And I believe that there have been other floods that have occurred since the time of Noah, which haven't been as destructive, but buried civilizations in place so that we would know that there were advanced civilizations during a period of times we say we have savages. But that is a personal belief that I believe is going to be proven out in the coming, especially the mud flood. I believe it was completely separate, even though we did have a lot of mud shifted around during that period of time. Yes, Bingus, that's what is very interesting. And I mentioned this earlier before you came on when we were discussing that carbon atoms are the 666, and the fact that all electrical matter is held together by vibration. And the vibration that goes out affects the electrical matter that is all around us. And that electrical matter gathers together to form material matter as we understand it. And thereby, the lights and the vibrations are all part of healing, all part of blessing and cursing. And I'm adding this part now because I didn't mention earlier, but that's the reason why I believe the vibrations are all part of the blessing and cursing and that type of thing. Because as you put those things out, they are responded to by others. Even people are now seeing across an internet connection, thousands of miles apart, people can hit a same score, same note within the spirit instantaneously, and it's by the vibrations of the spoken word. It's by the light, not just physically, but evidently there is a light that is not physical, because before the sun and the moon were created, it says light and darkness was created. So the sun and moon, it says, were there and produced a light, but they were there as markers. So we have two types of light. So I think that's something to add into it. I'm not sure where you're at, Balls for Life, but I hear you may be doing that quite a bit this weekend just to try to stay ahead of things. I feel for you, buddy. With my diabetes, I get out in the snow. I hurt for a month or two afterwards. Neuropathy is painful. Cheers. Gentlemen, I'm actually pushing 3 hours this time, which is longer than normal. I enjoy the conversation. Thank y'all for sitting and visiting. I'm not cutting this off right now. I'm just telling you I appreciate it. Uh, Me and the kids, depending on the conversation, we would just go till we were either too hungry or ready to go play in the creek, or if something was so interesting, we'd read on. I am going to stop reading because breaking these up into two pieces makes it easy for me to think about during the week. I'd like to do some type of segment where I kind of just throw out correlation points, but I haven't had time to do that kind of thing. I'm working to death just to stay ahead above water right now. I believe that's all partially intentional by the spiritual world to keep me too busy than putting a lot of this stuff together. But as you guys listen, if you want to start putting together resources, we'll create some type of way of getting them out. There's a lot of smart people visiting. Bingus, that's I was explaining this to Hog last night. For me, the turnaround, and I was explaining this to him in the aspect of love, because I was taught that love hurt as a child. So for me, love had to hurt until I realized that was not a proper response to love. And I had to reprogram all those love codes that had been placed in me before. I had to learn to be a blessing as to have negative things said to me to feel love. I had to accept positive things. And my first coming to understanding that was when I realized the Creator and His love for me. Okay, I'm unique, I'm individual, there's no one else created like me, there's none else that can go through the same experience in this big puzzle that's locked together. Um, because I am in this puzzle, there has to be a linking purpose for me, linked to other people, even though I may not know what those links and reasons are. I may never see them till the big picture is revealed to all of us. Um, but in coming to understand that He was love and that He created and loves everything, that He put into place a spiritual law which balances itself out so that righteousness can be achieved, that I was able to then begin to speak and take love myself in the way that is proper. Not say negative things to people, intending them to understand I was saying it out of joking, kidding, lovingness, but say positive things to them out of lovingness and not feel weird about it. Because I'm not giving away my love, I'm giving away the love that was given to me. OG Bobby Johnson, thanks for joining us, buddy. Um, Part of that being, as PA kindly pointed out, the spoken word of light and life or creation, giving that love away through the spoken word and changing the way I treated others. Um, Part of this learning process occurred early in my marriage. And in one of my wife's arguments, she falls down because she always holds to what happened early as opposed to changes. Because early, I would say negative things or I would get upset over certain types of affection and things like that. And as I learned the Creator's love for me in the reading of all these texts and the proper way of walking in light, I was then able to give it back to her, begin to say all the positive things, talk positive to my buddies at work, and not say all the negative things about how my wife was. And for a while, it was a very positive atmosphere. But then things swapped. My wife began to be the one speaking all the negative things as opposed to me, which when you're in a married relationship, you have two people working as one, which it then became a battle for me to maintain that balance within my own relationship and ensued a struggle for the rest of our marriage. Um, but that's where if you have two people walking the same path, walking in growth and light, aiming to be more positive as opposed to focus on all the negative, you have a positive forward growth. You have a stalemate in a relationship, in a spiritual growth, in creativity, and all kinds of things when you just have to work to maintain a balance within a relationship. And to me, that balance was more important because I was looking at it as my kids, trying to bring them out of a balanced situation, one that was completely out of balance at the time. And I did that through words. I did that through speaking positively to them. If anybody said negative things, it was their mother. They knew it was their mother. They knew that there was a differentiation, that you could choose to say bad things or good things. And I didn't fall into that trap of being negative as well, which was very difficult. I had to leave many times and go to my own personal room. I had to sometimes go to a motel so that I wouldn't escalate an argument or something in front of the kids and begin to say all that negativity. So I found tools for me that helped me learn to walk into that next step of positivity, removing myself from this negative situation, this negative point of conflict at this time until a balance arrived in her so that we could once again communicate on a somewhat level playing field. That growth proceeded to the point where we no longer lived in two separate houses on the same property, but we agreed to move in together here under one roof again the first time after 7 years, and try to work out things in two separate bedrooms under one roof. And to me, all things were going perfectly well. We were progressing in that. And once again, a spiritual influence comes in at a time that I'm beginning to be a spiritual influence. And every time this has happened before, my wife becomes that Satan, so to speak, and has shamed me in front of the community. She's done many different things in front of these different religious organizations. Um, that I know that for me to continue forward, I have to continue on this path I am now. She is going to be a negative influence that is going to destroy that. She has walked away under the point of most sanity in her life that we've seen in years. So this has to be something that is directed and is good for me by a power that is greater than me, even though I don't understand everything. And then, so not understanding, I began to look at spiritual law. And this is going to sound funny to some people, but the aspect of one husband, one wife, because it's clear throughout history that there's times that it's okay because of an imbalance within society for multiple marriage to occur. Um, what I found is that when you join in union, flesh upon flesh, you not only bind your DNA, which is now scientifically proven, but you bind your blood, your spirit, your soul. And you make a connection that can no longer ever be broken. Whether you divorce under physical law, that particular bond is always there. That is the reason why there's the laws of divorce and the laws of intermarrying or marrying again after divorce, with the previous husband being dead, the previous wife being dead, different things like this, depending on how you interpret it. Um, but in death comes a separation of that spirit. You're now half a spirit again, because that spirit has left this plane. You then have a freedom to unite with another spirit and have a good spiritual relation. My wife had lived with a man and had his children aborted previously. She had, under common law, been married. Under her own words that she spoke to me, they were husband and wife. So, in a way, I was taking the wife of another man. She was spiritually still attached to him. And this battle that I've been fighting with her insecurities were created by him. So, I'm fighting a spiritual battle that now has been separated from me because I was, quote unquote, living according to the law in adultery. I was living in a divided spiritual sense. I had more than one spiritual loyalty. And in order for me to continue in this path of positivity, that divided loyalty isn't going to heal because there's a curse that comes with it until he dies. So, not knowing where her husband is or any of that kind of thing, I'm living under that curse until he passes. It's a curse I chose to live under because I didn't understand the spiritual aspects of it till much later in life. But there's always going to be difficulties that have to continually be worked out. So you have to have two people aiming down the same path. And as long as we were always walking on that same path, we had positive growth. Uh-oh, my power has gone out. I hope it did not kill my live stream. Can anybody still see my live stream? I just had a power surge in my house and everything blinked. It's not showing me as divided. Looks like I'm still on. Cool, thanks, Paul. But let's see. It appears to me at times that the negative energy can be stored for the time. It can be triggered into positive understanding, causing expansive actions overall. And that's where I believe that the blessing of the Creator, where it says that all things that are evil, He makes good. I believe that is the positivity that comes out of it, and that the triggering causes growth in each generation from one to the next, and that's the reason why we're breaking free of this power structure that we are in. Um, this is why the law. This is why the walk to create always a limit. correct all the running around when young. This is why it's a walk, to correct all the running around when young. Yeah, I understand that. What's clear. Very something I was thinking about that is, see, I've got my girl's 12. She's heading to 13. I'm trying to begin to treat her as an adult because she's going to be living in a divided home, and treat her still as my child in the way I teach her. But it is a natural thing for growth for there to be certain periods of quote unquote rebellion in order for us to learn the lessons and the truth of authority, of natural order, of spiritual law. And it's the reason why we see this historically recorded generation to generation in the Bible. You know, one generation was good, lots of blessings. The next generation was a little bit worse, some curses. The next generation, direct rebellion, downright curse. So we see this played out in many different literatures. Um, uh, so these little bursts are like little running periods that we run away or run off the path or fall off the path or but it says the creator is the author and finisher. He is the ultimate guide. His spirit is the ultimate teacher. And it doesn't matter what we do here on earth, whether we try to usurp that in somebody else, that the children of light are ultimately going to be taught by him. And that's where the walk comes in, is learning to stop all of that, accepting what we're told is light and walking in truth as light. And thing is, there is actually within the laws, culturally, before the law was written spiritually into scripture, a place made for when society is heavy with women but low on men. And when a man is gone and a woman needs provided for, or that line is about to die off, or something like that, it was permitted for a man to carry upon his spirit the love for more than one woman. And that is a possibility man has. It is the way we love an entire family. It is placed in a mother that same love to love across all her children, equally but differently amongst all her children. Um, those spiritual laws follow, or the physical laws directly follow the spiritual laws and the tying together of spirits. And it is a symbol or a representation of the Christ who is going to be, quote unquote, redeeming the whore and marrying the virgin. So, by his example of walking into godhood, he leads a bride, a group of people into that same light. I'm saying it delicately because I know different religions interpret it differently. Um, um, I guess that was supposed to be into that chain of thought. I'm not supposed to take that any further because it just left me. Um, hey, Valley Grown, thanks for joining us. um, anyways, generationally, this is in place as well as within families. And I know. I'm sorry. Um, Back to accepting a curse upon ourselves or a struggle that we have to fight. When we go through those, they sharpen us or they make us stronger. We're able to receive more negativity from other people without it affecting the positivity we give out. And I know I'm taking this in a circle back to where we started with this Bingus, but uh, I guess it's where I was supposed to head with it. Um, learning to walk in that particular truth of love, in those spiritual connections, in the connectivity and the forward growth in life, we then are giving away something that is greater than ourselves. We're giving away light that the negativity can eventually not squish. Because the negativity can only attack the human side of our soul. It can only attack our mind, our will, and our emotions, which it says our spirit is supposed to take captive. Our spirit is supposed to control our mind, will, and emotions. But since we've told everybody they have no spirit, just be free, do whatever you want, they've not been told to control those. So the negativity then has the cursed effect of weighing down and squelching that light within them. And that's where guess I was headed with that. The thing is, I've been doing a lot of studying on Rh positive and Rh negative bloods lately because I know my family has some funny blood in it. Um, what I have found is that when it comes to those born prophet, priests, and kings, they predominantly have Rh. Rh has a strong genetic tie to left handedness and right brainness. Um, I believe these are markers that are going to be used for some kind of culling in the future. I say that hesitantly and very carefully because I believe that what we see as abductions may be part of that already occurring. Um, and I'm going to back up just one moment. God Spirit Breeder, creation, buddy, creation. The Creator is love, love creates. Love is blessing. Blessing is creation. So you have all of that wrapped up in the very essence of the Creator. And it was the expression of His love that caused the Word, that made the Spirit move, that brought all vibrations together, that brought about creation. And I've told that story before. Budget cheers. All's for life. Thanks for hanging out and chatting with me. Most people run. I know you guys would. I know that others will listen to this and hopefully get something from it later. These are kind of long to sit and listen to unless you plan to do it, which is something that took me and my family a year or two to establish. And it's something that once we did establish, I've held it until it disappeared 3 months ago as being one of the major points of our family growing positively. But we're made to rest one day a week. It says so in the physical structure of us. It says so in our spiritual structure. And it says within Scripture, don't argue with a man what day he chooses to rest as long as he decides to choose and rest because man is made to rest. So, all these religions fighting over what day it is ridiculous. What they should be doing is expressing the proper ways to rest as opposed to, you know, sharing with each other how and what I find restful to do. It's like my little nature things, the viewership drops off, but I take my little walks and talk to the friends who come and visit because that's what has been a positive thing for me for years is to be out on my day of rest, looking and seeing what the Creator has done around me, giving me that reminder that everything is so intricately tied together, including me. I'm intricately tied together to each one of your lives now by the very words I've spoken. If I disappeared tomorrow, these words have somehow affected your thinking because it's a vibration of positivity. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. My wife, in one of her writings to me, expressed that one of her ways she was trying to punish me was to take all this away from me. And that's when it became clear to me in talking throughout other times of the week with people and seeing that negative energy that, shoot, man, you just share this with other people, help other people begin to make this a part of their life. And in so doing, she doesn't take anything away from me. I have new children. Not saying y'all are my children or children at all, but I'm saying someone new to share this with, someone new to pass down the things that I've learned in my experience. So hopefully you don't have to go through some of the same curses or trials. You can look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? I can easily avoid this one. The amount of negative energy we can be flexible enough to store is conductive to the amount of positive, joyful energy we are destined to receive in return. For this timely opportunity in this for this timely opportunity in this moment. Um, I think I follow what you're saying. Positivity has a greater return than negative energy because when something feeds off of it, it only can sustain itself. Um, in this lower vibration, this time in the lower vibration. Um, okay, so negativity, it feeds. It can only sustain itself. Positivity grows, it creates. So therefore, it can sustain many. A positive vibration will go out and it will vibrate out and return like ripples in a pond. Negativity does the same thing, but it only affects targets. That's the reason why you find negativity either generally or effectively targeted type things. Um, when I was studying occultic type things, one of the things I learned that they felt the highest form of magic is verbal alchemy. It's the ability to change words so that the words have new power and changing the vibrations of the words to gain more response or more fear or more negative response out of it. And they shape words for that purpose. And in trying to be as wise as serpents, but as gentle as doves, we should learn to shape our words to be positive to counteract these vibrations. It says when you do this and a person speaks a negative against you and you return a blessing to them, that vibration actually directly, immediately returns that curse to the person who spoke its head. So if you want to avoid curses, learn to bless. That's the main thing. We receive curses, we receive negativity. We have to accept that their words have power over us. We have to receive that what they're saying is true for us in some way. And thereby they rob us or steal that energy from us. We're no longer able to give out that positive vibe, positive energy, that ripple of creation. Now, like I, oh, I'm sorry, it just dawned on me. I sound like the very thing I didn't want to be. I just wanted to read and have other people see this and talk about it. It took me years to learn this stuff through some very hard lessons, both physically and mentally. And I know that I can be deceived. I know that I can misread. I know that I am still locked within a soul and not a completely spiritual being, so I have a lot to learn. I most often am hard headed and have to have a curse give me its full brunt before I'm willing to accept that that area of my life is not right, that I've accepted a curse, and that I need to correct that in a positive manner within myself. So I don't like being responsible for other people. Let's see how to say this. What you put out, you are responsible for, your words. I try to make sure my words are positive because I don't want to be responsible for bringing negativity to other people's life. But there are people who will take everything you say positively in a negative way. they will come around, and I do not want to hurt those people. I guess that's the way I should best describe it. I was one of those people at one time. And that's one of the things, PA, I kept bringing up today about the waters and how all these different things keep discussing waters, how we are 90 or 70 some odd percent water. Um, Water is one of the most directly affected substances by the vibration that can be observed with our current physical senses. I believe we have the five essences of magic laid out because those five things are the whole of creation. And that somewhere in each one of these different essences, we're going to find a similar vibrational pattern that is easily for us to see. I believe that is one of the witnesses that it says creation holds, that the Creator has done this, and that the Creator is the one holding all structure together. That is what I use as evidence for that. And I'll say once again, I know you guys have heard this. I'm going to say this for people who listen. God is a title. God is a title people take very with high respect, as it should be. There are different people who talk to different levels of the chain of command. And I believe that we were created before all of this stuff to disconnect us from the spiritual happened, that we were created to be directly under the authority of the Creator. And that it was an original rivalry between that original created being and the angels that began this whole process. Well, gentlemen, I'm starting to get hungry, which 1 o'clock is kind of late. I'm usually hungry by about 11:30, but I'm thankful it lasted until now. I guess whatever was causing my gut issues earlier had to go through before it was going to let me get over the nausea. Apologize for the break, but it will happen. This is real life, and I do suffer from pain on occasion, sometimes pretty severe. I thank you all for joining and talking today. Can't wait to sit and talk with you again next week, and anytime throughout the week anybody wants to talk, we can sure strike up a conversation. Anybody got any final words? I want to say one final blessing to everybody here that's listening, and that you'll walk in light, that you'll have an easy path to see, that you'll walk in truth. Um, Something I was reading this week, it says that we worship the Creator in spirit and truth, and that those that walk in truth and spirit are the ones that are truthfully worshiping the Creator. And worship means that we honor, we respect. It is the only thing we're to fear in the fact that it's the only thing that can remove us from existence. Everything else can only bring some type of spiritual repercussion on us. Um, but that Creator watches over all, and I pray that He will watch over each and every one of you this week, show you a special blessing, that He will show Himself present in your life in a clear, miraculous way, so that you as well will have no doubt of His existence and His love for you. And that as we walk through this lower vibration, we will shine higher and brighter, friends. Cheers. Y'all have a good one. really do appreciate it. I'm not sure what this afternoon's going to fold out to, but I hope to get out and about later. Shalom.